Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Have you all been watching the trial? How have you? Wow, really? That's crazy. Yeah, we got DJ Nightbot. We got Emily D. Baker saying someone make it make sense. And I'm like, no worries. DJ Nightbot is here to make it make sense. Never fear. DJ Nightbot is here. So how's it going for you today, Fender? Would you like to see it again? Let's watch it again just for fun.
Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Woohoo! Yay! Very fun. Love it. So, all right. So I've been watching the trial back and forth. So far, they're on the second witness of the day, but we're going to jump right into this fellow on cross-exam, where they start getting into the nitty-gritty about the crime scene with the taillight and the shoe, and of course everything else that we didn't cover with this today. We'll of course cover it when we do the recap. But I wanted to, Lally gaggled along with him for so long, and I was like, I initially had it scheduled earlier, and I was like, I just can't listen to Lally for that long. Like, let's just wait till cross when it starts to get good. So that's what the plan is. Yes, we are on cross. Never fear, Fender. Yeah, don't worry. I read your mind. So let's jump right on in.
So I'd like to ask you a few questions about your observations about where these items were found in relation to each other. Was there a piece of red plastic located on the roadway left of the flagpole when you look at the house from the street?
Left of the flagpole, yes, sir.
All right. Now, given your testimony about these items essentially being in the same area less than a foot away from each other, it could not be true then that from that red piece of plastic that was found in the street, that 3 feet south of that was a black Nike sneaker found under the snow. That couldn't have happened, correct?
Well, I don't know where the distance between the objects as far as the mapping purposes, sir, but as far as how far apart, the first thing we discovered was one red piece of plastic, and then further south, that's when we found the sneaker and additional pieces.
Right, but again, they were all in the same area, less than a foot apart, correct?
The same general area, but it could have been over a foot, sir. I'd have to measure between the GPS markings.
Okay, well.
But they don't measure. That's the problem,
your testimony today that what you testified to in that prior proceeding, where everything was less than a foot apart, that wasn't accurate?
Objection.
Lally, shut up.
Is that your testimony?
Best recollection that they were within around a foot, but to be 100% accurate, you would have to measure between the two GPS points, which I have not done.
Yeah, they don't measure.
Sure, but if your estimate is you didn't even say a foot, you said less than a foot, correct?
I believe that's what you read around a foot, yes, sir.
Which is what you testified to, correct?
So MSP, I'm just abbreviating for Massachusetts State Police, because that's who we are going to be hearing from today, because I know the second witness who's on the stand currently is also from the Massachusetts State Police. So
correct, sir.
So if it's less than a foot, then by definition, the sneaker couldn't have been found 3 feet south of where that red piece of plastic was, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
You don't know what's accurate?
Well, you're saying 3 feet. I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
No, that's what I'm asking you. Is it accurate?
I don't know, sir. I'm not sure the exact distance.
yeah, that's your job. That's not his.
Markings,
that's
so
not his job. That's
I
your job.
I didn't know where you came up with that number 3 feet, sir.
I'm just asking questions.
Okay.
Well, I'm just asking questions. All right. So with regard to, let's assume for a moment that the sneaker was found 3 feet south of that first red piece of plastic. From your observations, was there a clear piece of plastic that was found a few feet south of that black sneaker?
There was a piece of clear plastic found just past the sneaker.
A few feet south of the sneaker?
I don't know where you're getting that from, sir.
Again, you don't have to like worry where my questions are coming
So,
from.
Mr. Yannetti, no comments. Next
Sure.
question.
I'm just asking a factual question. You were there, I was not.
Mr. Yannetti, just ask the
Yes.
question.
Was a clear piece of plastic found a few feet south of the black sneaker, which was found 3 feet south of the red piece of plastic? Did that happen?
I don't know the distance, sir. No, not without measuring it. But I wouldn't think it was that far of a distance. They were much closer than that.
Right. I mean, you say you don't know the distance, but you testified to what the distance was in that prior proceeding, did you not?
Objection.
Next question, please.
All right. And then, moving along, we have the red piece of plastic, 3 feet south, black sneaker, a few feet south, clear plastic, then finally, several feet south.
Oh,
of
Wally's
that
going to object.
clear piece of
You can
plastic,
hear him.
was there a second piece of red plastic found, several feet south?
No, again, I don't agree with your description of the distance, sir.
Okay, all right, so we will agree that, 1 piece of red plastic, 3 feet south sneaker, a few feet south clear piece of plastic, and then several feet south more red plastic. That didn't happen, correct?
I don't agree on those distances, no, sir.
No, okay. Now, you testified that
So I
these,
was just trying to confirm. I believe that he is the first law enforcement officer to testify from the Massachusetts State Police. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case. We did hear from the in week 5, the one day, we did have people, the different people that work for the crime lab and stuff that at the Massachusetts State Police. And we're going to actually be recapping that tonight. But in terms of like law enforcement that works for them, that was on the scene and everything, I'm pretty certain that this is the first guy. So that's kind of a big deal.
items were buried under some snow, correct?
Correct, sir. They were under snow.
Can I have those exhibits, please?
So we are going to be getting some new exhibits today, which is awesome. But not so awesome for him, I would imagine.
Okay, can I display exhibit 113, please?
All right, the jury needs to take a break. Why don't we
Sure.
why don't we have
Oh,
this gentleman?
Jury break. All right, let's zoom.
All rise for the court, please.
The Only Fan. Shout out to The Only Fan.
Look, sir.
So as you testify here today, 2.5 years later, can you tell the jury whether it was 6 or 7 of the pieces of plastic that you actually found?
I've never seen the evidence log from that night, sir, so I'm not sure exactly how many he recovered. Again, I was partaking in the search, so I'm not sure what the exact number is, sir.
And you would agree with me that you only mapped 3 of them on the map that was introduced here at trial, correct?
Correct.
And again, that was because the pieces were essentially on top.
Yeah, let's find out, Fender.
Correct. As you would mark them on the GPS, they were marking almost directly on top of each other, and we knew that was going to.
My
And they
impression
certainly
from
were not being marked.
from listening to him earlier was that he doesn't seem nearly as weaselly as the other law enforcement officers that we've seen. However, that's not saying a lot, right? Because literally all of them have been beyond. So let's find out.
Away from each
Together.
other several feet, correct?
No, sir.
All right. And you are aware that Lieutenant Tully photographed 5 pieces of plastic that day, are you not?
I'm not sure. I'd never seen the photos until probably about a week ago, sir.
All right, in any case, you did say to
Weasel.
the state police detective unit at the
Really?
end of the
Yeah.
search.
I mean,
that
Mr.
if
Solo
they
Cups, that's
wanted
his name.
you and your team.
I don't know his real name, that
to
doesn't
come
matter.
back out during daylight hours, you would, correct?
Correct, sir.
So I'd like to direct your attention to 6
Okay, let me back that up.
specific dates. And then I'll ask the state police detective unit at the end of this search that if they wanted you and your team to come back out during daylight hours, you would, correct?
Correct, sir.
So I'd like to direct your attention to 6 specific dates.
Fender,
I'll
I did
ask
not
you a
hear that.
question.
I'll back it up a little bit
February
more.
3rd, 5 pieces of plastic that
Okay.
day, are you not?
I'm not sure. I'd never seen the photos until
Holy
probably about
fuck.
a week ago, sir.
Oh
In any
my
case,
God. Good
you
catch,
did
Fender.
say
You fuck.
to the state
That's-
police detective unit at the end of the search
Wow.
that if
Wow.
they wanted you and your team to come back out during daylight hours, you would, correct?
Correct, sir.
So I'd like to direct your attention to 6 specific dates, and then I'll ask you a question. February 3rd, February 4th, February 8th, February 10th, February 11th, and February 18th. Those 6 dates. And my question is, did the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, ever call you on one of those 6 dates to come back to the scene to conduct a further search?
No, he did not.
I have nothing further.
Okay, redirect, Mr. Lally.
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Oh, you know what? I want to go back a little bit because there were some interesting parts. I heard this. I was actually running errands and stuff and I was driving and it was on cross. I thought that it was towards the end, but let's jump back a little bit. There's this part about dragging the body that's insane and it's new information.
We did not. He wasn't no longer on scene, sir. So I think that would have been not 100% accurate.
Okay. You also mentioned that Lieutenant Tully directed you to the area where the SUV had been parked, correct?
To where the vehicle was believed to have been parked. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
At that time, did you know it was an SUV or not?
Yeah,
I
dragging.
did not, sir.
All right. But in any case, Lieutenant Tully didn't tell you that he ever saw the vehicle parked in the area to which he
I
directed
remember
you,
hearing
correct?
this. I think it might have been a
He did
little.
not say that he
before
saw it
this,
there, no,
but
sir.
I did hear this
Did
part.
not.
Glasses, you
I did
don't.
not,
Okay.
sir.
All right, I'm sorry.
Back.
January 29th of 2022 at 2:32 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate because you've testified that's when Lieutenant Tully contacted you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's a
Okay, we need to go back a
an
little bit more.
omission report, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
this is important.
Away from the flagpole when you did that,
Yes, sir.
which would mean that your cruiser was parked.
Yeah, let me go back.
technically
I want
on
to go to the
wrong
part 2 where he finds the shoe.
Personnel status report, you'd agree with me, has everybody except for you and Beausoleil showing up at 5 p.m. on January 29th of 2022, does it not?
Yes, it does, sir.
And it has you and Beausoleil showing up 5 minutes before that at 4:55 p.m. on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
But it's your testimony that when you got there, it was just you and Beausoleil, correct?
Correct, sir.
Which actually would be consistent with the personnel status report, right?
Yes, sir.
Because that has you two showing up first as well, right?
Yes, sir.
And then your testimony is that
Fender, do you think
other
this is
members
Weasley?
didn't show up until between 5:20 and 5:24 p.m.
Trooper Bearden arrived at 5:21. Sergeant Luis and Sergeant O'Brien arrived at 5:24. Trooper Viscardi showed up at 5:34. Sergeant Carrier showed up at 5:41.
Okay, and so the last member of your team, which is
Yeah, yeah.
Carrier,
Yeah.
Carrier, correct, sir. 5:41.
he showed up at 5:41, and now your
Right.
team is
I would
all
agree
there,
with that,
correct?
Fender.
Yes, sir.
So
He
it's
does
your
not look
testimony
happy.
that
He does not
you
look like
did
he wants
not
to be there.
meet up as a team somewhere and head to 34 Fairview. You all arrived individually.
That's correct, sir.
Did every single trooper who arrived have their own cruiser?
Yes, they did, sir.
All right. Now, you would agree
I
with
like
me
his
that
tie
when Lieutenant
his
Tully
shirt.
first contacted you at 2:30
Going along with our
p.m.,
tradition.
it was still daytime, correct?
Yes, it was.
So it was
Great point,
light out,
Fender.
correct?
Great point.
Yes, sir.
Great point.
You'd agree with me that at around 5 o'clock on this late January day in Massachusetts,
Yeah, it'd be
it
getting
was
dark.
out by
Yeah.
the time you got there,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, it was.
So when you finally arrived on scene after getting your team getting the green light, it was dark for the start of your search, correct?
Yes, it was.
When you got there, you set up a
Wow.
command post.
Well, you could call my cruiser command post, sure, sir.
Well, I didn't use the term command post, sir.
Oh,
did I?
wow.
You did
Who
not.
used it first?
We marked my cruiser as a command post on the map, sir.
Okay, all right.
Ah,
And,
interesting.
a
Wow.
command post is a base of
Is
operations
that a little bit of attitude?
at the scene, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you parked your cruiser basically in front of the driveway at 34 Fairview.
You did have a nice smile.
To serve as the command post?
Yes, right side of the driveway. Yes, sir.
And you were initially facing
Looks like he's trying to hold back a lot.
away from the flagpole when you did that?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
wait.
Which would mean that your cruiser was parked technically on the wrong side of the street facing.
Shout out to
Cedar
the
Crest, 'cause
flagpole,
you were
as
against
always.
34
Love you.
Fairview.
Love you,
Correct,
flagpole.
And then ultimately turned it around?
Well, yes, myself and Trooper Bousselet moved our vehicles.
All right, and you initially
Oh,
parked
that's
there
cute, Bender.
in part because you wanted to keep the area where you were searching clear of vehicles, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was where you met at the, we'll call it a command post because you did, your cruiser. That was where you met to discuss the parameters of the
I wonder
search?
what the significance is.
When Detective Lieutenant Tully arrived on scene, that's where we spoke.
Okay. And you would agree with me that it was.
It'll be great when we
Lieutenant
get to hear from
the
Tully,
Norfolk
'cause he's
State Police
big-
Detectives Unit who told you where to look and what to look for, correct?
What new guy?
Correct. He told us the area he thought would be the best probability to find what we were looking for.
In addition to your team, the 7 of you, you noted that there were 5 other officers on scene at various points, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was about 5, sir.
They were all in uniform?
They were not.
Some were in plain clothes?
They were.
And you didn't know who those 5 other officers were, correct?
I only recognized 2 of them, sir.
And so the other 3, you didn't know if they were state police or Canton police?
Correct, sir.
At that point, were you made aware that the Canton police had been conflicted out of this investigation?
I had not, no, sir.
All right. Now, Lieutenant Tully directed you to an area where he said that John O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
He directed us to where he believed the vehicle involved had been parked and to where the
Hi,
victim's
Candace.
body was recovered.
All right. So again, in answer to my question, he did direct you to an area where he believed the victim's body was found, correct?
Yeah, so we on the stand right now, it's still the lady, Miss Hartnett or whatever. It's still the second witness of the day. So we'll get to her. What's her first name? Maureen Hartnett from the State Police Crime Lab. So she's still on the stand right now as we speak.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Happy you're
And he
here,
told
Candace,
you
my
that
friend.
He believed that the victim officer was hit and dragged by a motor vehicle, correct?
Yeah, I believe he might have said possibly dragged.
All right. But in terms of,
So Fender, she's given that same exact instruction and with the same example story before. With like the whole thing about the will and whatever else it is. I think she's still on direct. So it might be that these 2 people take up the whole day. We'll see. But yeah, she's given that before. I think it's actually a really good example about the number of things in one statement that are really important. Like the way that she breaks that down. I didn't listen to it today because I've heard it before, but like, what is it? Like somebody did something because based on the fact that somebody died and then they got money from a will. Was there something also about a well, or am I just getting it confused? Because that's how she says will, but and then she says it doesn't mean, and then she breaks it down. I think it's really good. She's just been doing that since like the beginning of the trial. I don't know that it was in response specific to anything specific. It might have just been, I think I recall it happening as like pretty early on in the trial, as in just like sometimes, the judges will kind of educate the jurors a little bit. Sometimes you'll even hear them say stuff like, if you hear an objection, disregard anything that comes after it if the witness answers. You know what I mean? Like I remember Judge Newman would do that every now and again. They just kind of, because the jurors don't know what's most of them have probably no experience with court trial. And so they, it's just to give them an example of how they shouldn't, it's like, it's one thing when jurors are always told, that the attorney's questions are not evidence. But I think giving that example is actually really helpful because it really helps you to understand the significance of that. So, oh yeah, poison, right? That's right. Uncle poison you, right? The 3 questions, I know, and the hear ye's I love. It's funny because the one of the dudes that does the hear ye's, he doesn't say God save the Commonwealth and this good court. He leaves the and this good court off. I prefer the one that says and this good court just because I think that's like so amazing and old fashioned. Right? I know. Which sucks because I would love to be on the jury for an interesting trial.
Your paperwork on the case, there's something called a final mission report, correct?
Yes, there is, sir.
And what is the final mission report?
That's just a brief summary of the actions conducted by CERT during our assignment.
CERT is the
And
One is
with
that-
regard to, just going back for a second, with regard to those 5 officers, you mentioned that you recognized 2 of the 5 officers that were in plainclothes at the scene.
Correct, sir.
And what departments were they from?
The only 2 I recognized were from the state police.
Okay. Now, getting back to the final mission report, you called it a brief summary of what you had done with regard to the search, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just because it's brief doesn't mean that it should be inaccurate, correct?
Correct, sir.
It's important with regard to anything that you submit on this case that you be as accurate as possible, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you try to be, correct?
Do our best, sir.
Whenever y'all hear CERT, that's an acronym, SERT, and that stands for the Special Emergency Response Team. But you know what I have to do whenever we get another acronym? Hold on. It's a must. Hold on, because he just said it. Here we go. Here we go. Perfect.
And there is an entry, well, there are 6 different categories on, or I should say 7 different categories on the final mission report. The first being the mission name, which you entered as the Canton Evidence Search, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate. The evidence search occurred, and it occurred in Canton, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also put the date and time of the first call, and you entered that as January 29th of 2022 at 2:32 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate because you've testified that's when Lieutenant Tully contacted you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's a
I would take Elaine over Lally any
entry
day.
or a question or a box that says
Cannot
general
handle Lally.
terrain.
Cannot.
And you entered that as neighborhood, snow-covered street, and front lawn, correct?
Correct,
And
sir.
that
We
was
might be-
accurate, right?
We might be getting.
Yes, sir.
We might be getting to the
And
dragging
in
part.
terms of incident type, you entered evidence search, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then there's a final mission report that talks about your mission and starts with, 7 CERT members, and that's the CERT team, right?
Yes, sir.
7 CERT members responded to the scene.
Yeah, I would say that one of my favorite Elaine moments was like there were actually several of them. It's whenever she would just give up, like she would just be like, "Your Honor, I'm trying." Like that one was really good. And then there were times where she just kept getting objected to and she couldn't ask something not leading, and then she just gave up on the question. And those are some of my favorite Elaine moments where she redeemed herself in terms of, at least it was entertaining.
And it talks about, the snow in the area where the victim's body was found, the plows had.
We're gonna get to the
Et
dragging.
cetera, et cetera. That paragraph is accurate as well, correct?
Yes, it is, sir.
And then there's a final mission report and it gives your name, Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, and it has your accurate badge number, which is 3042, correct?
Yes, sir.
At least we got
Everything
something
that
right,
We've
badge
just discussed
number.
in terms of what you put in your final mission report was entered
Final
accurately,
mission report?
correct?
That's hilarious.
Yes, sir.
And the final category is general description of mission. And would you agree with me that you entered the off-duty officer was hit and dragged by a vehicle at approximately
There it is, guys.
12:30 a.m.?
There it is.
I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly how it's worded, sir.
Y'all.
If I could.
There's
Can I
Got
approach
it.
Ron?
Yes.
okay. Hang on.
It's been a
So
recurrent.
what we just heard, well, let me just rewind it. There's a lot there. It's not even just the dragging. It's also the time at 12:30 a.m. because I mean, that's the time when all the things were
Francine, do you
happening
need,
and everybody was
I did not.
there.
glasses?
Everybody
I
was
did not,
looking
sir.
out the fucking
I'm
window.
sorry. Right, I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on.
In terms of what you put in your
Here we
final
go.
mission
Here we go.
report was entered accurately, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the final
Y'all.
category is general description of mission.
Oh my God.
And would you agree with me that you entered the off-duty officer was hit
Here.
and dragged by a
This
vehicle
is insane.
at approximately 12:30 a.m.?
I don't remember exactly how it's worded, sir.
How are we going to get to
No,
how
got
we
it.
have that information? That is nuts.
It's been a recurring theme. Do you need
Okay, I'm just
I do
speeding
not.
up
glasses?
all
I
the
do not, sir.
thing
All right,
of
I'm
the
sorry.
reading of the or admitting that
Thank you, sir.
document, recognize the document, what have you. It's going to be a special mission report, I would imagine. We have it. We good? He probably doesn't. He's probably procrastinating on this. I wouldn't blame him.
All set, sir. Thank you.
May I approach?
Yes.
Lieutenant, having read that portion of the final mission report, is your memory refreshed?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right. And did you enter in there?
I think he
The
did say that.
off-duty officer was hit and dragged by a vehicle at approximately 12:30 a.m.
Insanity.
Yes, it is. I did, sir.
Insanity. Yeah, it was just while he was reading the
Now,
stupid document.
With regard to the area,
Sometimes that takes a while for them.
or I should say, Lieutenant Tully's direction to you to search the area where the victim's body was found.
Okay.
Lieutenant Tully never informed you that he was actually present and saw the victim's body in that spot, did he?
He did not know, sir.
Did you mark the place where John O'Keefe's body was found with GPS coordinates?
We did not. He wasn't no longer on scene, sir. So I think that would have been not 100% accurate.
Okay. You also mentioned that Lieutenant Tully directed you to the area where the SUV had been parked, correct?
To where the vehicle was believed to have been parked, yes, sir.
At that time, did you know it was an SUV or not?
I did not, sir.
All right. But in any case, Lieutenant Tully didn't tell you that he ever saw.
By the way, court is at lunch right now. So this is great because we'll be able to get caught up and kind of up to speed for when they come back. Because I think they've been at lunch for about 15 minutes.
The vehicle parked in the area to which he directed you, correct?
He did not say that he saw it there, no, sir.
So Lieutenant Tully told you to look for a man's sneaker, correct?
That was one of the items missing, yes, sir.
And he told you to look for red and clear plastic pieces of taillight, correct?
He just said taillight, didn't say red clear, but taillight pieces.
Okay. Did Lieutenant Tully give you
clear, being
approval
close.
not just to search outside the house, but also inside the house?
No, we never discussed searching inside the house, sir.
And you had
Incredible.
mentioned during your testimony that you confirmed that the homeowner was there, right? Because he came out of the house at one point?
I don't know if it was the homeowner, but an adult male exited the house while we were there, sir.
Sure. And he appeared to.
It sounds
live at
like
that home,
it.
Correct? Let me just a moment.
The impression that I've been getting is like this dude, for example, it sounds like a lot of this was sort of like, you know, following kind of orders from Tully. So it's going to be really, my thought is that after this lady's done, it's going to be Tully, but I don't know if that'll be today or not, but I'm really excited to hear from him. By excited, I mean terrified at the horribleness. Right? I know. The kids maybe in the telekinesis. Right? Opposite town. I know, right? It is. It's insane. It's really.
Now, with regard to the area that you were searching, you would agree with me that Lieutenant Tully was the one who directed you where to search and what to search for, correct?
He gave us the best idea for the search area, sir.
All right. And it was based on his direction that you created a grid and began your search.
He told us where he believed the vehicle was parked and where the victim's body was found, and I decided how far of a distance we would search.
Okay. So that's another way of saying it was based on his direction that you created a grid and began your search, correct?
Yeah, I based it off of the information he provided, yes, sir.
So the answer is yes.
I guess so, sir.
This was not the first time that you and your team have done a search in the snow, correct?
Not for evidence. We'd never done a search like this before, just for missing person searches.
I see. But in any case, you've been trained to search winter crime scenes that have snow, correct?
Correct, sir.
There
God.
are proper techniques for conducting such searches.
And it was such a disaster. I can't remember the dude's name. I'm going to call him Mr. Solo Cup. Mr. Solo Cup, if DSN was here, he would know his name. Berkowitz, maybe? No, not Berkowitz. Sorry, that's not him. I can't remember his name. But Mr. Red Solo Cups, you know, part of the amazing thing about his testimony was how many excuses he gave for how they were not able to collect the blood, and that's why they had to use the solo cups and shit. And I remember very specifically him being asked, like, you know, you're saying that you've never needed to collect evidence in the snow in like whatever 35 years or whatever that he'd been in the force, and it's like, and he's like, nope. And then I think it was United who was doing cross, and he was like, seriously? Because it's just not believable in Boston, right? Like, it's just not believable. So that it. So now he's going to find out about this guy. Is this guy also going to pretend that Boston doesn't have winter?
During or after a snowfall, correct?
Yeah, we have best practices we use.
Best practice. Next question, G. Do your best practices include using a red solo cup? But hold on, we've got a request.
You wouldn't use a solo cup.
I'm sorry, what?
Objection, Your Honor.
Solo cup.
Incredible.
I'm sorry. I didn't
Yes, we have best practices we use, sir.
Okay.
That's
Best
funny.
practices would include documenting the scene and the area to be searched with photographs and diagrams,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
It would also include using, gentle methods to remove snow, correct?
Here we go,
Yeah, the
guys.
best way you can, yes, sir.
That might include, smaller hand tools, brushes, gloved hands.
Leaf blowers.
Only if you would have a real small area.
It would include removing snow layer by layer and then sifting it and documenting evidence again for each layer that's removed.
Yeah, I believe that's how we went through, sir. We went slowly, methodically, and sifting through the snow as we progressed down the area. Correct.
And best practices would mean documenting by photographs along the way the progress of your search, would it not?
That would be up to the detectives or the crime scene unit, sir.
Well, but you were the one who was making those decisions, correct?
Not for documentation purposes. No, that's not our responsibility, sir.
Okay. But you would agree with me that it would be advisable to document your search in that way, would it not?
That would be at the discretion of the detective, sir.
Okay. Well, would it harm your search in any way to fully document it along the way?
It would not harm it, no, sir.
You want to take your time and work methodically and thoroughly in the search, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you want to collect
Mhm.
evidence as it's located and immediately photograph it in place before it's disturbed, correct?
Yeah, as evidence is discovered, it will get photographed in place. Yes, sir.
During your search in this case, your team found a sneaker and pieces of red and clear plastic, correct?
Correct, sir.
The evidence that you found was basically on top of each other, within a few inches of each other, correct?
Within a foot or two, a couple feet, yes, sir.
Well, you testified at a prior proceeding in this matter, did you not?
I did, sir.
And you were sworn to tell the truth during that prior proceeding as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that testimony was closer in time to the search that you conducted on January 29th than today is, correct?
Yes, it was, sir.
And your memory would have been better then than it is today, correct?
Probably, sir.
You were asked the question, quote, and as far as the red and clear glass you believed consistent with the taillight, was that
Glass.
found in the same area
Glass.
as the sneaker or somewhere else?
Glass.
Do you recall that question?
Glass. Hang on, what? Ah. All right, so here's the first thing that is an issue. Taillights are made of plastic. I actually last night at the end of the BK coverage, we were discussing this for a little bit, and I actually timestamped it because I was talking about my experience cracking my own taillight. It's plastic. So it's interesting that either they just mistook it for glass, which is one problem. But the second potential problem, it's one of two options, right? The other potential problem is this could be the supposed glass that we've kind of heard about, but hasn't come into evidence yet about the glass, like from a glass potentially, like they kind of, I guess, I'm sure they're not going to have any way to confirm that. It's just speculation, right? They're just like, oh, I guess that's what it is. Probably because they heard people talking about Karen with the glass in her coat or whatever. But what's going to be interesting is like, even if that's what he's going to later then say it is, he identified it in his report as being from the taillight. So it's problematic no matter what. Right. Yeah, I know.
I believe he asked that question.
Could be
Yes, sir.
the
And your
old
answer
cup
was
and evidence
same area
collection container,
within a few inches,
anonymously.
less than a foot, correct?
Plastic evidence.
Correct, sir.
Now, you mapped out GPS coordinates for what you found?
One of the team members did, yes, sir.
Your team did.
Yes, sir.
And Lieutenant Tully from the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit was present during the search, correct?
Yes, he was.
And he was the one that was photographing the items that were found?
Yes, he did.
Aha, Tully again.
So I'd like to ask you a few questions about your observations about where these items were found in relation to each other. Was there a piece of red plastic located on the roadway left of the flagpole when you look at the house from the street?
Left of the flagpole. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, given your testimony about these items essentially being in the same area, less than a foot away from each other, it could not be true then that from that red piece of plastic that was found in the street, that 3 feet south of that was a black Nike sneaker found under the snow. That couldn't have happened, correct?
Well, I don't know where the distance between the objects as far as the mapping purposes, sir, but as far as how far apart, the first thing we discovered was one red piece of plastic, and then further south, that's when we found the sneaker and additional pieces.
Right, but
I bet they didn't
again, they were
measure
all in the same area, less than a foot apart,
The
correct?
same general area, but could have been over a foot, sir. I'd have to measure between the GPS markings.
Okay, well,
Yeah, there it is. Called
so
it. They didn't
is
measure
your
it.
testimony today that what you testified to in that prior proceeding, where everything was less than a foot apart, that wasn't accurate?
Objection.
Is that your testimony, sir?
Best recollection that they were within around a foot, but to be 100% accurate, you would have to measure between the two GPS points, which I have not done.
Sure, but if your estimate is you didn't even say a foot, you said less than a foot, correct?
I believe that's what you read around a foot, yes, sir.
Which is what you testified to, correct?
Correct, sir.
So if it's less than a foot,
Right.
then by definition, the sneaker couldn't have been found 3 feet south of where that red piece of plastic was, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
You don't know what's accurate.
Where you're saying 3 feet, I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
No, that's what I'm asking you. Is it accurate?
I don't know, sir. I'm not sure the exact distance. I didn't measure the GPS markings, sir. I'm not.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't know where you came up with that number 3 feet, sir.
So
I
this
just
is where we were before. So we watched this, and then they take that break, and then we come back, and then this is where we were before we went back to hear the stuff about the dragging.
File, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And again, that was because the pieces were essentially on top of each other, correct?
Correct. As you would mark them on the GPS, they were marking almost directly on top of each other, and we knew that was going to.
And they certainly were not being marked feet away from each other, several feet, correct?
No, sir.
And you are aware that Lieutenant Tully photographed 5 pieces of plastic that day, are you not?
I'm not sure. I'd never seen the photos until probably about a week ago, sir.
Ah, yes, we heard
In
this
any
part.
case, you did say to the State
Oh,
Police
man.
Detective Unit at the end of this search that if they wanted you and your team to come back out during daylight hours, you would.
Oh, you know
correct?
what? Actually,
Correct, sir.
So I'd like to direct your
if
attention.
memory serves, we heard this is almost the end of cross, and then it goes to redirect. There he is. Okay, so we heard the rest of that cross. So let's jump here. Oh God, do we even want to listen to it? I don't know. Do you want to listen to this? It's all good, Fender. We're going to be doing that recap tonight at 8 o'clock. So we might be going late. So if you're awake, I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for being here as always. All the insanity.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Oh, that was it.
Maureen Hartnett, Hartn.
So that was it. I guess there wasn't. That was directly after that dude. So I guess there's not. I guess that was it.
ETT.
All right, Ms. Hartnett, I know I'm going to ask you throughout this to keep your voice up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Like unless it must have been really brief.
And Ms. Hartnett, what are you
Yeah,
here
because
for?
there's the break.
I'm a forensic scientist too with the
They
criminal
come back,
ethics
that's
unit
it.
and crime scene
Yeah,
response unit.
That's it. They come back from the break, and then did Lally even ask a question? Did he ask any questions? Let's see. Oops.
Correct.
Correct, sir. As they were discovered, they were photographed.
So regardless of inches versus feet versus whatever distance it was.
Oh my
you didn't
God.
Measure that, is that correct?
We did not know, sir.
Oh, for fuck's sake. It's just, okay, it's about what we could expect, right? But it's very brief because then that's it. And there's no recross. So there's no recross. All right. Now we got homegirl.
And Ms. Hartnett, what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist too with the Criminalistics Unit and Crime Scene Response Unit at the Massachusetts State Police Crime
Her
Laboratory.
name? That's not her name.
And how long in total have you been with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
In total, approximately 8 years.
And I'm going to ask you some questions just a little bit about your educational background. Where did you go as far as your undergraduate was concerned?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Bridgewater State University.
And following receipt of that degree, where did you go from there?
I have a Master of Science in Forensic Science from the University of New Haven.
And after you received your master's, where did you go after that?
I was then hired by the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
And when you're initially hired, you mentioned that you're a forensic scientist too now, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So when you're initially hired, or when you were initially hired at the State Crime Lab, what was your position and what did that entail?
Are you referring to back in 2004 or in my current hire?
You're back in 2000.
In 2004, I was originally hired as a temporary employee in the CODIS unit.
And what is it that you did there?
I collected blood samples for the DNA database.
And
All right, I'm
did you
gonna go
receive any
forward a little
training
bit
in regard to
because Lally's
in
going to
regard
do
that
this
work?
whole thing.
Yes, I was trained on how to properly collect and seal
All
those
the
samples. They can come
lollygagging.
to the same conclusions that I came to based on my notes. Root, but I had said the root was absent. That was due to the fact that I didn't see anything like that under the microscope. It was something that was new to me. My technical leader reviewed that hair with me under the microscope. She showed me various characteristics such as a loss of scale pattern and
Hold
the soft appearance of the root, which I thought was
All right,
damaged.
let's go back just a little bit. She's talking about the
You
hair.
did evaluate it to verify that the previous reports were issued correctly?
Yes, they were.
And what was the determination in regard to that?
No previous casework was affected by this error.
And have you since completed additional proficiency tests in hair and fiber identification?
Wait, what?
Yes, I did.
Wait, what error?
were the-
Hold on. There was another error?
This
How many
specific
errors
proficiency tests
do they
were
have in
found
this
to be-
case?
A remediation occurs when you have an inconsistent answer with that is expected by the laboratory or by the test provider. In this particular instance, I had an inconsistent answer with the expected laboratory result.
Oh,
And how was the remediation completed in this instance?
After the inconsistent answer was identified by my technical leader, we had a verbal discussion about why I came to the conclusion I did. To be more specific, each item had 2
Interesting.
samples. One of the samples for item 4, I determined as being a human hair without a root, when in fact the root was present. We had a discussion on how I came to that conclusion.
interesting.
And then she then mounted that hair back on the microscope and we discussed different ways that I could have come to the correct conclusion.
Interesting.
And
Oh, man.
during that remediation process, were you
Oh,
permitted to
man.
continue to perform casework during that time?
Yes, I was. I was permitted to continue to perform casework in hair and fiber identification. However, I was temporarily asked to not perform technical reviews of my peers'
Jesus
work on hair and
fucking
fiber
Christ.
identification.
What a mess. What a mess.
And
Oh my
was
God.
the prior casework that you had completed, evaluated to verify that the previous reports were issued correctly?
Yes, they were.
And what was the determination in regard to that?
No previous casework was affected by this error.
And have you since completed
How many other
additional,
error-
proficiency
whatever.
tests in hair and fiber identification?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, I did.
And what were the outcomes?
obviously other police work wouldn't be affected by the error, but what about police work on other cases where you're not examining this particular hair specimen, other hair specimens? I mean, hopefully they caught those problems.
Those subsequent proficiency tests.
Those were successfully completed without needing any additional remediation.
Jesus Christ.
As far as the remediation was concerned, if you could just explain to the jury sort of what the issue was and what that remediation process looked like again.
Sure. So I received 4 items in hair and fiber identification. Each item was told that they came from the same source. Item number 4 consisted of 2 items. One was a hair with a root. The other was also a human hair with a root, but I had said the root was absent. That was due to the fact that I didn't see anything like that under the microscope. It was something that was new to me. My technical leader reviewed that hair with me under the microscope. She showed me various characteristics such as a loss of scale pattern and the soft appearance of the root, which I thought was damage. Because we had this discussion and I agreed with the different characteristics that she showed me, she then gave me several hairs, both with damage and with roots, so that I could
Practice.
basically continue to
Jesus
understand the difference of what I was looking at.
Wow.
Once she looked at all my notes and agreed with everything that I had
Is that what
done,
you
she
do in
then issued
school,
me an
though?
additional test to demonstrate my continued competency in this.
Wow. This is
Now, how many
awful.
criminalistics cases have you processed over your time?
Now, having said that,
Over 1,000.
having said that, I will say this: at least they corrected her and then I guess kind of monitored her and made sure she didn't have these same errors, as opposed to again, Mr. Solo Cups, who just did that and then that's that. Like, at least they were like, okay, let's talk about why it was wrong and not do it again.
And how many scenes have you processed in regard to your work with the crime scene response?
I responded to approximately 150 scenes, 80 of which I was the lead investigator on.
And how many exams have you completed with regard to motor vehicles?
Approximately 65.
Now, if I could ask just a general question as far as blood testing is concerned, how is it that you test for blood?
Normally, I would test for blood by locating a visible red-brown stain or an area that may contain blood. I perform a screening test, which is not specific to blood, but other items may also come up positive for screening tests. If that screening test is positive, I go on to perform a confirmatory test.
And as far as the screening test is concerned, can you explain to the jury sort of what it is that you do in performing that screening test?
The screening test is a two-step process. I take a cotton swab, which I apply sterile water to. I take that cotton swab and apply it to the area that I would like to test. And then I add my 2 chemicals to the swab. Depending on what type of screening test I perform, there'll be a color change, either blue or pink for blood.
And with regard to the confirmatory test, can you explain to the jury sort of what does that consist of?
If the screening test is positive, I'll go on to perform a confirmatory test, or again, a cotton swab is applied to the area of interest, or I may take a cutting depending on what the substance is. I then add a chemical to that cutting or swab, and then the liquid portion is added to a test card, something similar to a COVID, if you've taken a COVID test or a pregnancy test, the liquid is spotted at one end of the card and it flows up the strip. If there's 2 lines, it's positive. If there's 1
We've
line,
all
it's
taken
negative.
COVID tests. I doubt there's anybody in this courtroom that
Your
hasn't.
training experience and work with the lab, are you familiar with a term called QLIM or QLIM?
Yes, I am.
And can you explain to the jury what QLIM means or how it's
You,
applied?
Lim.
QLIM stands for quantity limited, which means that the sample, if it's being sent forward to DNA, would not be able to be divided in 2. Typically, we divide each sample going forward to DNA into 2, 1 to be tested in our DNA unit and 1 to be preserved for future testing. If an item is deemed QLIM, it means that that item, the entire item will be used up in the DNA processing.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, if I could turn your attention to February 2nd, 2022. Do you recall that date?
Yes, I do.
And on that date, were you dispatched to the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I was.
And do you recall approximately what time of day it was that you arrived at the Canton Police Department?
I believe it was approximately 9 a.m.
And when you arrived there, who, if anyone, beyond yourself from state police or other sort of personnel was present at the Canton Police?
Trooper Proctor, Trooper Dunn, and Trooper Clark from Crime Scene Services Unit.
And at some point subsequent to that, were there other members of the state police that arrived in that area as well?
Yes.
And was one of them a reconstructionist named Trooper Paul?
I'm not sure what the name was. I do know that the reconstruction team did come on after I arrived.
Now, where within the Canton Police Department were you directed to go, or where did you go?
I was directed to the Canton Police Department garage.
And when you got to the garage, what specifically did you observe there, and what, if anything, were you asked to do?
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And did you then examine that black Lexus SUV?
Yes, I did.
And you made certain observations of that, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, with respect to your observations that you made of the black Lexus SUV, was that memorialized in any way?
Yes, I took notes as I was examining it.
That's good.
And you mentioned Trooper Clark as well, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And is he from the Crime Scene Services section within the State Police Lab?
Yes.
And what, if anything, was he doing with reference to the black Lexus while you were making your observations or while you were conducting your work?
I believe he was taking photographs. I don't know any other, I don't know what else he performed while he was there.
And your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
We never know how long these approaches are.
And showing the pre-page documents, just ask you to look down the help you finish. Do you recognize that document, ma'am?
Okay.
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
It's, it looks like diagrams that I had taken at the scene. However, it appears to be missing some information.
Oh
So
boy.
as far as the notes that you took, they're not memorialized. Ms. Hartnett, you were taking notes on those diagrams when you were at the Canton Police Station in the garage?
Yes, I did.
And that diagram that you have before you does not contain those notes, is that correct?
That's correct.
But as far as the diagrams that you had before you and that you were taking notes on, those are the diagrams or a form of those diagrams.
Yes, that's correct.
And contained on that is certain information related to
So
the vehicle,
I'm going to
like
make an executive
Yes, correct.
decision and
the
skip
make,
to
the model,
cross.
license plate
Well,
number, is that correct?
actually,
Yes.
And if you could just read.
I don't know. Let me, I'm going to, okay, actually, I'm going to go to the
Model and
pictures.
license plate number.
Because actually, I don't
The
know.
make is a Lexus.
All right, go here. Here we go. I think they're still at lunch. In real time.
160 to 166 one.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, the court commission may publish a portion of this.
Very publish.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2539.
Shout out to Miss Gilman. Here we go.
Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is photograph 2539. That's now been marked as exhibit 160. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the rear passenger area of the black Lexus.
Now, as far as the damage that you observed from the broken taillight, if you could, using the laser pointer before you direct the jury's attention to that, or what's visible of that in this photograph.
They know where it
This
is.
area here is the
Lally.
broken tail light.
No. They're well familiar.
If I could have next photograph 2540. Now it's 161. Again, Ms. Hartnett, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to where you observe, if anywhere in this photograph, damage to the right rear passenger.
There's damage in this area here to the rear tail light.
By the way,
You observed, it essentially wraps around from both the back.
I mentioned earlier in the stream that I was talking about what it's like to break a taillight last night at the end of the BK coverage, and I have it timestamped, but at the very end, I believe it's like the last timestamp before the outro, I actually gave a really specific example of kind of how it breaks. In my experience, I've broken several, and I've also been around other people with them broken, and you can actually tell even from this picture because like there's a big spot that's missing there, right? It's before they removed the whole thing, and you can kind of tell actually from the way. Can you guys see? Oh, perfect. So you can tell, like, we were talking about this last night, and I was describing it to somebody in the chat who had never, I mean, from what I could tell, hadn't broken a taillight. But you can see the way that this is broken right here, how this is all in one big piece, right? It's just a clean break, and it's all in one big piece. So that's how it would break, right? You're not going to have this break in this manner, and then the rest of it break apart separately. And I gave a really good example comparing it to like a sheet of ice on a lake. So if you're interested in getting a good visual of how it breaks, definitely check that out. It's from the BK live stream last night. And I will include a link when this live stream is over, when I have videos at the end, I'll include a link for that as well. And again, it's timestamped. But B, now you can actually see, we had not seen this picture before to my recollection. And this is a good example of exactly what I'm talking about, because you can just see from how this is broken, you can get an idea of how the rest of it would have separated from this piece that's still intact. So
Back and from the passenger side of the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2554. And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as photograph 2554 exhibit 165?
Yes, I do.
And talking before, earlier in your testimony, about some stickers or some sort of evidentiary marker that you would put on an item that you're examining, correct?
Correct.
And do you see any of that in this photograph here?
Yes, I do.
And could you direct the jury's attention using laser pointers where you observe that and what, if any area of damage or what that's denoted?
There's a sticker here, and I know you can't see it. I don't know if we can zoom in.
We can see it, milady. Oh, okay, let's.
There's a letter on the sticker, I believe it's A, that denotes that there's something there that I was going to collect. And right next to that sticker here is the apparent hair that I noticed.
Gentlemen, if I could have photograph 2558.
Okay, here comes the hair, I suppose.
2556.
So my guess, okay, I'm just trying to, because Lally's not going to connect the dots. I guess what they're suggesting with this, right? Because from what we understand, that what she's going to talk about is the hair and the glass, right? Because we've heard a little bit about this. And so I'm wondering if this whole thing is supposed to be the explanation for the gash in the head. Because that would be one way they could explain it, because otherwise there's not, they need something sharp, right? And if it's sharp and it has a hair with it, but it'll be interesting to see how the heck they try to, are they going to stick with like that dude who just got off the stand who said that he called the glass pieces of the same taillight, which is incorrect because taillights aren't glass. Or are they going to claim it was a glass from the bar? And we did see Paul, oh my God, we did see John O'Keefe leave with a glass from the bar, but she did not have a glass. But none of it makes any sense. No matter how, even if you try, like if I try to think about a way that this could have happened, where he got hit with the car and apparently was dragged, that was new information today, and it caused the damage to the taillight that it did, and he ended up with the injuries that he did. I cannot, even in my wildest imagination, figure out how the heck you make that happen. And I will say, part of the trouble, there's a lot of trouble, but part of it is like, I'm short, I'm 5'4". If I stand at the taillight of my car, the taillight is at my waist level. So for someone to have only damage to their head and their upper body, face and head, right? And then arms. I mean, I guess they're trying to say the arms are from when he was dragged. Again, that was new information. But you would have to be a child. Or potentially, I guess, maybe on your knees, but they're going to have a tough time, with that, I would imagine.
And
Well, I mean, we're already having a tough time. So.
In this photograph, in regard to something that you had marked.
Yes, that's the rear bumper of the SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in a little on that. And Ms. Hartnett, in this photograph, what if anything is depicted that you've noted something sort of black or further examine that later?
There's pieces of apparent glass here on the bumper.
Okay. I hope what we get to next. Here's the thing. I hope what we get to next is that it was tested and confirmed, because a piece of clear plastic could look like glass. So let's see what happens.
I'm showing you another series of 4 photographs. You can just see those of the underpin. Do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
This is the rear passenger exterior right below the taillight on the Lexus SUV.
Can your honor, may I approach the witness? Yes. Come up, please. The next one, exhibit.
Well, let's go forward a little bit. Zoom as they do this.
With what may I publish some of these photographs?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2573. Ms. Hartnett, again, photograph 2573. What's now marked as
I think they're still at lunch, guys.
What's depicted in this?
Yes, I do.
And if you could explain to the jury sort of what we're looking at in this photograph.
This is the area of the rear passenger side of the vehicle, just below the taillight.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask sort of towards the top center of that photograph, if you could zoom in on that area. Ms. Hartnett, do you observe another sort of sticker or placard that you place in that area?
Yes, I do.
And what, if anything, is that in reference to?
I'm sorry, I can't see what the letter is on it, so I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
Great.
If I could ask Ms. Gilman.
So, Mr. Lally, when you read, when you put your head down to read, your voice goes down considerably.
Oh my
You cannot
God.
Get a recording of your voice. So you need
Lally.
to speak up.
Understood. Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph.
He has been
2576.
corrected so many times about speaking up. It's insane. I mean, every single day, every day.
And Ms.
multiple
Gilman, if
times
you could, with reference to the two areas up on that, if you could zoom in that area.
You always hear the defense attorneys, like no matter what, you can always hear them.
All right, first on the one below. Ms. Hartnett, can you see better there as far as what the sticker is and what you had noted there?
Yes,
And can you explain to the jury what you had noted in that particular area?
Why didn't you show
I noted
us
there were scratches in that
first?
area.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could, the one above. Thank you. Also within this exhibit 172, there's another sticker further upward on the vehicle. What, if anything, did you note or observe in that particular area?
In that area, I noted the apparent hair.
Thank you. May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. So a tiny little piece of something that looks like glass or plastic and the hair.
Photographs of this asking the same question. If you could take a look at those and
But they weren't in the same spot though, right? I mean, they were in different places.
asking if you recognize apparently what they are.
You know, the other thing, here's the other thing. So where that piece of what they're saying is glass, but it looks like it could also be clear plastic, and they haven't confirmed that yet, what it is. It was like resting on the, let me go back and take a look. Hold on. You see. Because the thing is, hi, Black Widow, I'm so happy to see you. The thing is that, here, let's take a look. The thing is that wasn't it just resting on the bumper? Because that would be weird, right? Because this car was driven like quite a bit after when the incident would have had to occur. Hold on, let's just see.
From the damage that you observed, it essentially wraps around from both the back and from the passenger side of the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 255.
Okay, it's got to be this next one. I'm happy to see you, Black Widow. Happy you're here. Happy you're cleaning your hovel again.
And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as photograph 255-40165?
Yes, I do.
And talking before, earlier in your testimony about some stickers or some sort of evidence.
Okay, let me go forward a little bit. Oops.
And you had marked.
Ah,
Yes, that's the rear bumper of the SUV.
here it is.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in a little on that placard.
Okay,
And
here's what I was going to say. So regardless of what this is, glass, plastic, whatever, it doesn't even matter. It's interesting that it would still be there. I mean, I guess it's small, but like, and it looks like there's another one here, but they don't seem to mention that. Interesting. But like, in other words, whenever this incident happened, right? That hasn't been really confirmed yet, but this vehicle was then driven, to John O'Keefe's house and then all over Tarnation, as it were, right? Because we know that there were, Jen McCabe ended up driving it at some point. I can't even fucking remember all that mess, but this was driven to and fro, right? And then at some point, this vehicle was collected and then brought into the station and still has this piece of glass/plastic there. Just interesting. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to confirm that this was resting on a surface and still there after being driven. That's why I jumped back to take a look at the picture. But now let's go back to where we were.
now, as far as the collection of that evidence that you collected from the vehicle specifically, how was that evidence collected? And again, you've received training in regard to collecting evidence, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, Lally.
The collection of evidence that you did in this case, was that in conformity with that training and experience that you have?
Yes, it was.
And so how did you collect those pieces of evidence from the vehicle on that particular?
Did you use a red solo
It
cup?
depends on what the item was, the tail light specifically. Is that what you're asking about?
Did you use a leaf
Well, first let me
blower?
ask as far as the hair, and then I'll move on to some other items if that's all right. So as far as the hair was concerned, how was that collected?
I would have collected the hair with tweezers, put it in a glassine envelope, and then put that into a larger
Would
manila
have?
envelope.
Not did.
And
Fucking
as
hell,
far as
man.
those steps that you take.
Why
as
would
far
you
as
not
the
say
collection
you
is
did that?
concerned, what are some of the concerns for that, or why is it that you take those steps?
Prior to touching any evidence, I would put on gloves. I'm not sure in this case whether I used disposable tweezers or reusable tweezers. If I used reusable tweezers, they would have been bleached prior to my using them.
Why is
to
it
prevent
not in your notes
contamination.
though? Oh my God.
And so each of
I
those
guess
sort of
I'm
steps that you take. in the
preemptively
collection
crossing
process,
her,
fair to say
essentially.
that it's in an effort to combat.
Visions
contamination.
of cross.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with regard to the paint chips or paint standards from the vehicle, how did you collect those?
Those would have been collected with a disposable scalpel. I use it to scrape off pieces of paint from the vehicle, which are then put in a glassine envelope and a larger manila envelope.
And as far as the pieces of glass from the bumper area of the vehicle, how were those collected?
I collected those with gloves. I may have used tweezers. I don't recall at the time. But again, if I used tweezers, I would have used bleach tweezers or disposable tweezers.
Now, as far as that taillight assembly was concerned, how was that collected, or what, if any, issues did you have with regard to collecting?
I removed the taillight. Once I had the taillight housing in my possession, I did have trouble disconnecting it from the vehicle. So a police officer on scene did help me disconnect it from the vehicle so that I could properly package it.
And as far as what exactly was it that officer helped you do, or what, if anything, did he do?
I believe he just removed, helped undo the wires that were in the back of the taillight so that I could properly hold it and didn't have to place it down anywhere.
So you had two hands on the taillight as he was performing that, is that correct?
Yes, I believe I did.
And as far as the area of the taillight that you were holding, you were wearing gloves, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And as far as that area that you were holding with your two gloved hands, did that officer touch any area of that part of the taillight?
Not to my recollection, no.
And do you recall whether or not that officer was wearing gloves himself when he disconnected that wiring?
I don't recall.
Now, as far as once you removed that taillight from there, what, if anything, did you do with the taillight there?
I put it into a brown paper bag and then transported it back to the lab where I then properly secured it in a box with added cushion from additional paper to ensure that no additional damage was done.
Now, with respect to your time at the Canton Police Station, were you presented with any additional evidence by any officers from the Canton Police?
Yes, I was.
And what were those items?
I was presented with a broken drinking glass that was reported to have been recovered from the scene at 34 Fairview Road. I was also presented with several solo cups filled with frozen red brown.
What did you think about that?
Now, starting with the drinking glass, what, if anything?
It's okay, Super Planner Girl. So they are at lunch right now, to the best of my understanding. They should be back probably soon. This is right. So this is only the second witness of the day. Because there's only been two, and she was still on the stand when they went to lunch. So it has her name here. So she's from the State Police Crime Lab. So prior to her, it was a lieutenant from the Massachusetts State Police, who I believe it was the first time we heard from law enforcement that was on the scene from the Massachusetts State Police, from the best of my recollection. And a notable thing real quick from his testimony, well, one thing that really stood out for sure was that in his report, he said that the information he was given was that an off-duty police officer died at 12:30 a.m. and was hit by a car and dragged. So the dragged part is a good one. As per standard practice for them, nothing was measured. And there were some other issues, and what have you, but the dragging part was a new one. And then this lady came in after him, and she's the one who tested the car for the hair, which y'all I'm sure are familiar with. And there's something that they're saying, well, the previous lieutenant had said that he found glass that belonged to the taillight, but I was clarifying that taillights are not made of glass, they're made of plastic. So there's something on the bumper of the vehicle, and she calls it glass, but they haven't confirmed if it was tested for what it's actually made of, because it could be plastic from the taillight. We don't know. And he's now asking her about collecting that evidence, basically, is where we're at. So that's pretty much the long and short of it. And I started everything late because Lally was on direct with that lieutenant forever, and I couldn't do it. So I came in later than planned so that we could skip a lot of that and go to cross and whatnot. So
You do with regard to the drinking
I packaged it in a brown paper bag.
glass. With regard
Which
to
of
the
course.
cups, with red brown stains contained within, what, if
Classic.
What, if anything, did you do with regard
was
to
it a stop and
I allowed the cups to thaw, and then I took two
Amazing.
sterile swabs, like something similar to a Q-tip, and collected a sample from the red brown stains in those.
So she's talking about when she was handed or whatever the solo cups to test. This is insane. How is she even having a straight face?
cups.
And then, what,
Wow.
if anything,
Wow.
After you took the swabbings from those solo cups, what,
What?
let me ask first.
I have a
with
lot
regard
of
to solo
questions.
Cups, what we're done with those?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. So after you took
Oh
the
my
swabbings
fucking
from
God.
the red cups, what, if anything, was done with the red cups?
I returned those to the Canton Police Department to
Drink
store
out of
as
them
base outfit.
afterwards? Play
And as
beer
far as the
pong?
swabbings that you took, what did you do with those?
I secured those in a glassine envelope and a large envelope, and then transported those back to the lab.
Now, after your examination on scene, you returned back to the lab, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what items of
Hope
evidence
y'all are
did
having
you
a good
examine first in this case in the laboratory?
I examined the apparent hair from the vehicle as well as the broken taillight.
Now, starting
Yes,
with the
you heard me.
examination of the taillight,
Dragged.
photographs, in general
Dragged.
terms, when items are taken by you back
Insanity.
from any kind of scene or any kind of place that you're processing, and you
Insanity.
bring them back to the
With
lab,
no
what is it that
damage
you
to
do with
anywhere
them
other than his
when you get
head,
back to the
apart
lab?
from the hypothermia.
When I get back to the lab, I ensure that they're packaged properly, that they're sealed, and they're stored in the appropriate location within the lab. I also enter them into our laboratory information management system so that from that point forward, those items can be tracked throughout the lab.
Now, each of those, now when you come in with sort of a case, is there some sort of number or something that's associated with the case when you first sort of generate that?
Yes,
And do you recall the case number that you assigned or was assigned with regard to this investigation?
yes, I do.
And what is that case number?
The case number at the lab was 22-2184.
Now, with regard to each specific item of evidence that's taken back to the lab and logged in, what, if any, numbers are assigned or associated with those particular pieces of evidence?
Each piece of evidence is given an independent lab item number.
Now, with respect to the taillight, that was labeled as 3-1, is that correct?
That's correct.
So with respect to item 3-1 or the taillight, can you explain to the jury the examination process that went into that?
Sure. I prepped my workspace by spraying it down with a 10% bleach solution. I also sprayed down any reusable utensils that I would need to use. I then applied a piece of butcher paper to protect the lab bench and prevent contamination. I would put on gloves, my lab coat, and mask before I examined any item of evidence. And then I took photographs of what the packaging looked like and then photograph of the piece of evidence itself.
And then from that specific item, did you perform any testing on that item?
No, I did not do any testing on the item.
And why not?
I was, due to the case history, there was no visible red-brown stains on the item, as well as the fact there was a very limited surface area for me to sample from. In addition, I was informed that the car had been towed through a blizzard. So given the fact that there was potentially very limited material on the taillight, if any type of testing that we do would remove additional material. So I made the conservative decision to take a swabbing of the item and send it forward for DNA.
And as far as that swabbing of the item for DNA purposes, can you explain sort of what the process is or how that's done?
Yes, we use a polyester swab, which is a flat spatula-shaped swab. I apply sterile water to the swab and rub the exposed areas of the taillight. And then that swab dries before
my
it's
God.
packaged and sent to DNA.
No, just dragged by a vehicle. It's
With court's
nonsensical.
permission,
God.
publish for the jury what's now been
Yeah.
marked as exhibits 187 through 189.
Okay, I'm gonna go forward a little bit and see if we can get to, do we get to cross?
Preliminary or overall photographs, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, what was that?
Areas of damage.
Oh, the shirt. Oh, this is good.
Do you recognize that as well, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the exterior rear of item 7-18.
And if I could have the next photograph, Ms. Gilman, 9791. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen now? Is exhibit 192?
Yes, I do.
We explained the jury.
Now, remember,
That
they
is the
cut,
interior front of item 7-18.
so remember, they cut that off of him, right? So that's not damage due to being dragged. LOL. It's from them cutting it off.
And lastly, not lastly, for this purpose, photograph 9792. And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen? Is exhibit 193?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the interior back of item 7-18.
And Ms. Gilman, if I get a 9795. Again, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen? Is exhibit 194?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the exterior front of item 7-18, and it also contains markers that I placed on the item to note areas of damage.
And next photograph would be Ms. Gilman, 9796.
So-
Now, Ms. Hartnett, what we're looking at here, that's the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt. of
Let
item
me jump
7-18.
forward a little bit. Looks like they're back from lunch. I think they're still on direct, which is incredible. I think they're still on direct. So I wonder if this is going to finish
With
out
court's
today.
permission, may I publish these photographs of the jury?
That would be,
Yes.
Oh, that would be crazy, right? Like if this finishes out the day, it very well might. If they're still on direct after lunch is what it seems like.
Photograph 9837.
Holy mackerel. More pictures of the shirt.
And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Blood.
Screen, which has been marked as exhibit 224. Do you recognize that
Me.
as well?
Yes, I do.
See, I'm not like at this juncture, I'm not too like obviously there's gonna be blood on his shirt. He had injuries. Get to where we need that, like, why are we not hearing from someone talking about how he got injured? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Like this would make a lot more sense. These pictures would make more sense if the jury first heard how he was injured, right?
Do you recognize that? Steve?
And then they could be like,
Those are
oh, that's consistent with like what they told, what the medical examiner said. But no, it's like
Red brown stains B and C that I noted on the
we
sweatshirt.
go forward more. And that's it. There. Okay, so now let's catch up. Let's see if they come back from lunch. Oh, are they? I thought they were back. Oh, they must have started a separate stream. Okay, hold on, guys. Sorry about that. That's weird. They usually do the full day. Interesting. All right, here we go. Julio.
No.
Oh my God, why can you not full screen?
Ms. Hartnett, with reference to the sneakers and sort of the other clothing items that you received, do you recall how or where or when it was that you received each of those respective clothing items?
So they came back
Or
from
how the lab
lunch.
did, you know?
They were received by the lab from the Norfolk detective.
We're about 10 minutes behind the real feed we're about 10 minutes from where they after they came back from lunch. So she's been on the stand. Yeah, so I guess we're about 10 minutes behind. Okay, let's do that.
Detective unit.
And as far as the sneakers being labeled with two different stickers, do you know why that was?
One of the sneakers was recovered from 34 Fairview Road, and one of the sneakers was recovered from the hospital.
The sneaker thing is interesting. We don't know much about that
With
yet.
reference to the photographs that I've just played
Not
before you, have you had
surprisingly.
a chance to look at those?
These ones here?
Yes,
No.
if you could. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs now?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are the fingernail clippings that were submitted for John O'Keefe
And do you know where they were submitted from?
by the Norfolk County Detective Unit.
May I approach you?
Yes.
I'll call them up and take you through the minutes of next.
Yeah, we're actually almost live. Wow. Not normal. Crazy.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, with respect to each of those, I'm not seeking to publish those to the jury at this time. So
I would imagine Cross is going to take longer
The
than
lights back
direct.
on, please.
So crazy. Wow.
now, Ms. Hartnett, with respect to those stains on the gray sweatshirt, the orange T-shirt, and the jeans, what, if any, testing was done with respect to those stains?
None.
A screening test was performed on each of the Rembrandt stains on those items. I'm sorry, did you say the sneakers?
Oh.
Could you repeat what items you're speaking of?
Mistake.
With respect to each of those respective clothing items, what, if any, testing was done with regard to any stains you observed on those items?
For the sweatshirt, the T-shirt, and the jeans, I saw visible red brown stains, which I screened for blood. The majority were also, I also performed a confirmatory test for blood. There was one stain on the orange T-shirt, however, that was too small to perform that confirmatory test. So for that instance,
Again, like
I
pizza
noted
sauce.
that the stain was quantity limited, and I preserved it after the positive screening test instead of performing a confirmatory test in order to preserve enough material for any DNA analysis. As far as the sneakers, given their dark color, I did not see any visible red-brown stains on the black area of the sneakers, so I used an alternate light source to aid in visualizing any potential blood on those sneakers. With that alternate light source, I tested several stains on the sneakers, one of which screened positive for blood.
Now, with respect to the other clothing items that you were talking about doing the screening test and the confirmatory test for blood, with respect to the gray sweatshirt, the orange t-shirt, and the jeans, what were the results of that screening test and that confirmatory test that you ran with regard to each of those?
The screening test and the confirmatory test were positive.
Riveting. Again, this would mean more to us
Now,
and the
beyond
jury
stains,
if we
did
knew
you take
anything
any
about how he
additional
died.
samples, from those items?
Yes, I did.
And what were those and how was that done?
Like at
For
this,
the,
at this point, it's just random blood,
For each
right?
of the items, I picked up any loose trace material, which would be hairs and fibers or apparent hairs and fibers that were adhering to the item. I also did a scraping and swabbing for skin cell collection of the unstained areas. And that involves taking a sterile scalpel and swabbing the areas of the clothing that don't have any visible stains on them, and then taking 2 cotton swabs and swabbing that same area, and then combining those scrapings and swabs for potential DNA analysis. In addition to those, I also took a scraping of each of the materials, and that involves taking the item, using something like a flat metal spatula, and scraping down whatever adhering materials left on the item into a glassine packet.
Y'all.
And as far as those items, once they're collected from the material or from the clothing, what do you do with them from there?
Each of those items is given its own item number. It's a sub-item of the overall larger number used to mark the item, and those are sent to the appropriate units for additional testing.
And as far as preservation is concerned, when it comes to sending something to either the trace unit or the DNA unit, what, if any, steps are taken in regard to preserving those items once they're removed from the clothing and sent off to the other units?
Each of those items would be preserved according to protocol. They are sealed properly, initial and dated with my initials and date. They're entered into our LIMS system, so those sub-items could then be tracked throughout the laboratory, and they're stored in the appropriate storage unit.
Now, at some point, did you also receive items that were labeled as 3-2 and 3-3?
I submitted those when I returned from the original scene.
And what were those, ma'am?
Those were pieces of glass from the bumper and a drinking glass from the crime scene.
Now, did you examine those items?
Yes, I did.
And what, if any, examination did you do, and what is it that you were looking for in your examination?
I did a visual examination, and I took photographs, and then I also took a collection from each of the items.
And did you do any testing on those items?
No, I did not.
And what kind of samples did you collect from those items?
I took potential skin cell collection using
Wow.
a swab moistened with,
So they're still just assuming that that's glass. And again, the lieutenant who testified right before her said glass from the taillight, which is plastic if it's from the taillight. A mess.
sterile water.
And as far as the samples that you took from, as well as the items themselves, what, if anything, did you do with reference to those once you were done with your examination?
The swabs were preserved for testing in the DNA unit, and the original items, the apparent pieces of glass and the drinking glass, were preserved for the trace unit.
And as far as those preservations were concerned, is that similar to the preservation process you were describing earlier with regard to the clothing items?
Yes, that's correct.
So both Mr. Lally and Ms. Hartnett, you have to keep your voices up,
Christ.
or we have to turn the air
I
conditioner.
feel like she's doing fine. Lally, on the other hand.
I may have one moment, Charlie.
Yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I don't have any further questions.
Thank God.
All right,
Cross-examination, guys. Woo! We did it. We made it. That was brutal. We didn't even watch the whole thing. And we're, I think, on 1.25 speed, maybe? Or no, I put it on normal
Ms.
because
Hartnett, you
live.
responded to Canton Police Department. A lot of your testimony was about what happened in the Sally Port, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Lally Port.
You were asked if you responded to the Canton Police Department on February 2nd, and most of your testimony was predicated on that date, you going over there and doing some visual observations, as well as some removal of items and some other testing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Was it February 2nd or was it February 1st?
May I check my notes?
I'd appreciate it if you did this.
My apologies, that was my error. It was February 1st.
Okay, so everything that you testified to, you only went once.
Yes, that's correct.
So everything that you testified to having taken place on February 1st, we should assume it was actually on February 2nd, we should assume it was actually February 1st.
boy.
One time you were there.
Yes, I was there one time.
Okay. Were you dispatched to the Sally Port? And I apologize, I'm not yelling at you. I'm trying to keep my voice elevated, so just so you know.
Understood.
Not my
Excellent.
normal speaking
Good
voice.
job.
You were dispatched at the behest of one of the Massachusetts State Troopers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The Detective Bureau specifically, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Trooper Proctor more specifically, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Trooper Proctor, you knew at that time to be the lead detective, the person that was in control of the investigation.
May I check my notes who I wrote down as the lead investigator at that
If it
time?
would refresh your recollection, sure, with the court's permission.
Yes.
Yes, I was told on scene that Trooper Proctor was in charge of the investigation.
All right. Now, while you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to just do an overview of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Obviously, that was important given the limited information that you had at that time about a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
So you were looking for anything that would rise to a level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Hence your review and notation of certain scratches on the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes.
Which may or may not have anything to do with the incident, but you noted it anyway, correct?
I did not draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from.
Okay, you just took the words right out of my mouth. My next question, the dent that you noted and photographed, you made no conclusion that that occurred as a result of a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
The scratches, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them. The scratches that you denoted and had photographed, you made no conclusions about that having anything to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
Even the broken taillight, at that point, you made no conclusions or drew no scientific conclusions about that having anything at all to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
You did, however, look for tissue, human tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the car itself. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
In that review, I think you testified that you saw nothing that suggested the transfer of human tissue to the vehicle, correct?
I did not see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle.
You were told, Ms. Hartnett, that there were scratches on one of the extremities of John O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
Were you shown a photograph of those scratches to assist you in your visual review or examination of that vehicle?
Not at that time, no.
To this date, have you seen a photograph of his arm and the injuries to his arm?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, if I may, if we have it, could I display for the jurors and for Ms. Hartnett Exhibit 19?
Is this the one that's
The arm
that's
that
covered a bit?
has been
Okay.
cropped.
Yes.
Your Honor. Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 19?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of scratches previously, correct?
Yes, I've seen a photo containing
Okay, and
something
that's
similar.
consistent with the photo that you've seen since your visit to the Sally Port on February 1st, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Was there anything in your, by the way, did you look at all around the vehicle 360 degrees?
Yes, I did.
Did you look toward the top of the vehicle as well as toward the bottom?
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Say
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Understood. Did you examine the undercarriage of the vehicle?
I did look at the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And you know what I mean when I say undercarriage.
Yes.
Could you explain for the jurors what you mean when you use the word undercarriage?
The parts that normally you would have to see by, bending over or laying underneath the car to view what's underneath the vehicle.
That would include the frame and the axle and the drive shaft, transmission, things of that nature.
Yes, I'm not confident in all the terminology of the undercarriage, but yes.
Did you see anything that was
Yeah.
suggestive
So
of? or
this is a big
consistent with the
deal. Here's
pattern
why.
Of injury that you see to Mr.
This is a big deal because besides the fact that it's not going to be consistent with his injuries, remember, we just heard earlier today from that lieutenant that the victim was dragged. So guess what that would mean for the undercarriage, y'all?
O'Keefe's right arm.
I wouldn't say I'm qualified to make any kind of pattern determination and what would match the injuries on his arm.
So the answer to my question is, as you sit here, you made no observation of anything on the SUV that matched these injuries, correct?
I wouldn't be.
Go ahead and answer that.
I wouldn't be able to testify from that from memory. I don't have a photograph of the undercarriage, nor did I make any kind of conclusions about that at the time.
Okay, understood. And you didn't take any, I'm sorry, the swabs and samples that you did take variously on the car all came back negative for human tissue, et cetera.
The testing that I did on scene from the various areas of the undercarriage, which I mentioned before, the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, and the exhaust pipe screened negative for blood.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, can we take this down?
I'm just going to suggest that. Thank you, Your Honor. On February 1st, 2002, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle itself, you also mentioned that you took swabs of what you believe to be blood evidence contained in 6 solo cups, correct?
Yes, I noted those as frozen red-brown stains in red cups.
Were those solo cups in any way labeled among themselves? In other words, solo cup 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't believe they were, but I don't have a photograph of that, so I'm not 100% sure.
You did not thereafter label those solo cups. If they hadn't been done beforehand, you did not undertake that to label those solo cups, correct?
No, I did not label them.
Did you, how did you take those swabs? Was the swab done in one solo cup, or did you take a swab from all 6, or how did you take those swabs that you ultimately did take?
I took those swabs from one solo cup.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups you were going to take a swab from?
I don't recall exactly how I chose which cup. It was reported to me that those cups came from the same area of red-brown staining, so I assume, you make an assumption that they're all related. It came from what I was told, it came from one area of red-brown stain at the scene.
Pardon
And
me?
you, of course, know.
Pardon me? He has such a good little makeup.
Blood stains can contain multiple contributors, correct?
Of course they can.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
You don't know as you sit here which blood stain found at the scene related to which solo cup in the bag, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, it was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain, but I was not there.
From the same scene or?
Stain, excuse me. It was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain.
Okay. If they in fact were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing that as you sit here.
That's correct.
And ultimately, once you did take that swab from that single solo cup, what did you do with the rest of that blood evidence?
I left that with the Canton Police Department.
Was there any of the swab, by the way, I should ask this, I've been saying swabs. Was there one swab taken from that one solo cup, or were there multiple swabs taken?
There were 2 swabs taken.
Of those two swabs, did you seek to do DNA testing, or was DNA testing done on either one of those or both of them?
DNA testing was not done on those swabs.
So as we sit here now, there's been no DNA confirmation of what who that blood relates to, I should say.
There was no testing done on it at all.
And so therefore, we
Great.
would not know if there were multiple contributors to
I know,
those
right?
stains
Awful.
or that swab that you took from that single solo cup.
That's correct.
Wow.
And again,
Good
the
job.
remainder of all of that solo cup, as well as all the other 5 solo cups, was retained by Canton Police at the Canton Police Department in the control of the lead investigator.
I'm
Michael
really
Proctor,
shocked that they're
correct?
even going through this because remember, the solo cups were not even marked properly into evidence. Like I just assumed that that was the last we were going to hear of it because they were not put into evidence. They were kept in the Sally port, not marked, not properly stored. I can't even believe this is happening right now, honestly. How was it not thrown out? Okay, never mind.
I don't know who was in control
Nothing
of
makes
it once
sense,
I
Carl.
returned it to the Canton Police Department.
Who did you return it to at the Canton Police Department? Whom, I should say.
I believe I gave it to a Canton police officer. I don't know which officer that was.
Michael Proctor was at the Sally port at the time that you were doing your examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Did he not take control of it himself?
Not that I saw. I don't know who took control of them once I was done with my
You
collection.
may have, you just don't know.
Correct.
Going back to some of the damage that you did note on the vehicle, that vehicle looked like it had been driven to a certain degree, right?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
I'm not, if you could clarify the question, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Terrible question. Let me try it again. That vehicle was not a vehicle that had clearly just come off the showroom floor and had not been in use, based on your examination.
I don't think I am qualified to make that kind of decision.
It looked like there was some normal wear and tear on the car.
Other than the specific items that I pointed out earlier, the dent and the scratches, the exterior was in overall good condition. So I can't say specifically if it was driven other. I don't think I can make that conclusion unless you want to rephrase the question.
You didn't have any reason to believe that car was in any other condition than it had been owned and driven by somebody, right? Or could you make that conclusion?
I don't think I can make that conclusion.
So it could have been an absolutely brand new, right off the showroom floor car?
I guess I don't have any understanding of what could have happened to it in the showroom. I'm not sure I understand the line of questioning.
Why don't we move along?
Fair enough.
Jesus.
I guess what I'm asking is, did you've done some damage analysis in the past? Obviously, this was not your first rodeo, right?
I don't do damage analysis of some vehicles.
Okay. Did this car look like it had reasonably normal wear and tear on it? That's my question.
I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
Okay.
That's not, you're supposed to say it's outside your scope.
Ultimately,
Or
the
experience
right
it.
rear taillight housing was removed, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you the person, Ms. Hartnett, who actually used the tools to remove that taillight, be it screwdrivers, wrenches, anything else?
No.
Who was that actually did that work?
It was a Canton police officer that had entered the garage, and as I was removing it, he offered to help. He said he knew how to basically take it out of the housing, which at that point, I was not sure how I would do that.
Okay. I'd like to show you an exhibit that
Oh,
you've been
boy.
shown just a few minutes ago before the lunch break. 187 with the court's permission.
Okay.
Does that look like the same housing that you removed from the SUV, or you saw being removed from the SUV?
Yes, that is the taillight housing that I submitted to the lab from the garage.
Ultimately, there was a swab taken, you mentioned on direct examination, of that taillight somewhere on the housing, correct?
Yes, I took a swab from that taillight.
Where exactly did you take that swab from?
I took it from the outer exposed areas, which would have been on the outer side of the vehicle. So I did not take it from the internal, what would have been the internal portion of the taillight when it was intact.
Can you point with a laser pointer exactly where you swabbed that taillight housing?
Sure. Is there a way that, can it get zoomed in just a little bit so I can differentiate the silver in the front? I'm having a little trouble.
Aha,
So we
okay.
got enough, or do you need more?
I believe so. I can start. So I took it from the red area here that would have been exposed.
Wow, that's a good look at
And
that.
then if we could zoom in a little bit more just on this front area so I can differentiate between the internal structures and the external.
Was it one swab?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you swabbed multiple areas with one swab and
Wow.
then submitted that.
Yes.
So you don't know as you sit here where, if any DNA was detected, where that DNA may have come from,
No, that's correct.
other than the general housing altogether.
Yes. So then just to finish your previous question, I
Oh,
did.
sorry, I didn't mean to-
That's okay. It was just I couldn't see it. So this area here, which would have been the external portion of the tail light. So the areas I did not swab were any areas that would have, when the tail light was intact, been protected by the outer plastic housing of the tail light.
Is your testimony, Ms. Hartnett, that what you just pointed to was the exterior portion of the tail at bottom left?
No, just this piece of plastic here is the exterior, the exterior piece of plastic.
And you swabbed that area as well as other areas on the exterior, like the red upper right.
Yes, that's correct.
As you swab that, the DNA test does not differentiate where you swab, just that you swab, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That was all one swab, one collection.
Got it. So we can't define whether the DNA was to the upper right, on the outside of the lens, or some other place that you pointed to.
That's correct.
And of course, you're familiar with touch DNA, et cetera, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Touch an item, walk away, sweaty palms. Good likelihood I just left some DNA on this podium, correct?
Yes, you can transfer skin cells by touching an item.
Thank you. We can take that down with the court's permission. Sure. You also indicated that you collected glass from the rear bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus, correct?
Yes, I have it as a parent glass, but yes.
As a parent glass, fair enough. You labeled that as item 3-3, and it was 5 pieces of glass labeled A through E, right? A, B, C, D, E. Is that
May I
yes?
look at, may I refer to my notes?
With the court's permission.
Yes.
All right. I think let's see if we can get caught up to live.
I'm just unfamiliar.
Numbers are crystal clear.
Now we're caught up
In
to
that
live.
group, under 3-3, there were 5 pieces of apparent glass that you recovered, correct?
Oh.
I don't have the exact number in my notes, and honestly, it's difficult to tell from my picture, so I don't want to say that I saw 5 pieces of glass.
Did you not annotate that somewhere?
Oh, boy.
There were 5 pieces?
Again, I have a photograph of it, but it's difficult to see on this printed page. So
Yes,
I didn't
if you-
specifically write
Oh my
5
God.
pieces anywhere.
What the fuck?
Well, okay, then let me see if I can do it this way.
Initially, I thought she was doing good in the note-taking department, but I take it back.
Let's cash. The person that you submitted it
I know,
to
right?
would have annotated
Yeah, because-
exactly what the grouping was that you submitted.
Because I said this actually from when she first mentioned it, apparent glass, exactly. Because literally, I was like thinking to myself, oh, surely they're going to have tested it to make sure it's glass. Because looking at it, I was like, it looks just like it could be plastic from the taillight. And like, how much more fucked can this thing get if, in fact, there isn't glass, it's plastic, and they all assumed it was glass? And the whole theory about the glass from the bar or whatever, like, I swear to God, you guys, seriously though, when you have a shattered taillight, according to them, or one that's just broken normally the way taillights would break, and it's clear and red, I swear, if they didn't test this,
To try to be accurate.
just when you think
I'm the one that initially, excuse me, after the item was sent to fingerprinting, then I examined the item, but I didn't write down exactly how many pieces of glass were present. I just took a photo.
And as you sit here, you don't recall necessarily how many pieces you took off that bumper.
Correct. And the quality of the photo does not allow me to see that at this point.
great, well done.
Let's take a look at that photo. With the court's permission, this is exhibit 168. Can we show that, display that? And if we could, Mr. Bates, with the court's
I
permission,
have a gut feeling it's going to be plastic from the tail light. I just have a feeling. And I have a feeling there's no glass
I
involved
would ask
at
you, Ms.
all.
Hartnett, do
That's
you
my gut
recognize
feeling.
this
I'm calling
photo
it right
as
now.
soon? Do you still recognize it?
Heard it here
Yes,
first.
I do.
Is that a photograph that you caused to be taken at the Sally Port on February 1st,
The Lally Port.
2022?
So
I believe it was for.
this is exactly what I was talking about, is this exact piece right here. This is what if y'all can see, it's right here. They'll zoom in, I'm sure. This to me looks like plastic from the taillight. I swear to God, if there's no glass, I'm going to lose my mind. But I'm going to go ahead and put all my squirrel bets and my squirrel acorns in one basket by saying that there was no glass at all. They assumed it was glass and it was plastic.
February 2nd, right? Did we, or it's February 1st now?
February 1st,
We agreed it's
okay.
February 1st. My apologies. Yes, on February 1st, I did request that photo be taken of the apparent pieces of glass.
Okay, and I know you can't see necessarily.
Apparent. She's even calling it apparent. Oh my God, she's calling it apparent. Oh my God. Oh my God, she's calling it apparent. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit. Does this mean that they do they test it and confirm it's not glass? I'm going to lose my mind.
Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's correct that none of these pieces of apparent glass were
Fucking hell.
embedded in the bumper. They weren't dug
Nope.
in.
No, they're
Stuck in
resting
that
on it.
hard
You can
glass,
see it.
correct?
No, I do not have that. I do not have that notation that they were embedded, just they were on the bumper.
As a matter of fact, they were physically perched on top of that hard plastic
Well,
horizontal bumper.
I forget, somebody was asking if John O'Keefe's family was in the courtroom. And I don't remember if it was Super Planner Girl or if it was Black Widow, but there he is. Remember, the last time we saw them looking like this was during the text messages, y'all. Remember, because we pointed it out, the text messages from Brian Higgins, where it gets to the point where it's like really disgusting. And we talked about how their demeanor had completely changed and the way they were looking to read. And now they're doing it again. And I mean, they don't always show them, so I can't say for certain, but this is the second time that I've seen this happen so far in the trial. I mean, maybe it's another turning point for them, you know? Maybe they're like, holy fuck, this entire thing is a sham. But they've got to already be thinking that, right? Sadly, I mean, right?
Correct?
To my recollection, they were just sitting on the bumper. Yes.
Okay. And do you know, just in your experience, and if we could leave this up for just a moment while I
Super Planner Girl, is it Jimmy McNutty or whatever? Whoever it is, I hope they feel like an idiot, honestly. But you know what? I feel like the people who are, it's like flat earthers, man. I feel like no matter what I feel like they could be presented with the fact that it's plastic and not glass, and it's just not going to change anything. They'll just be like, I don't know, they'll make something else up. I don't even know what they'll make up, but it'll be interesting. I hope we can find out what they do. I mean, how did they handle the solo cups? Actually, I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. Doesn't matter. People are stupid, man.
Okay. Do you know where Dighton, Massachusetts is?
I know the general area.
How far would you say that is from Canton?
I don't know, maybe a half an hour. I'm not exactly sure.
Do your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dighton?
This is exactly what I also pointed out. It's so funny because I joked earlier in the stream. I was like, look, I'm doing cross ahead of time because two of the things that I mentioned was I was like, that's probably glass and not plastic. And the second thing was I pointed it out. I went back and rewound. I was like, look, it's resting on the bumper. And yet that car was driven all over tarnation. I even used the word tarnation. And I think that's probably exactly what he's getting to, is like, how the fuck would that still be there? And I wonder if where he's going to go with this is that came out of the taillight when they removed it for testing. And that's how it ended up there. How much was that?
Back to Canton.
Fucking hell.
Placed in the
And it's
South
not
Port
glass.
Before you started your
No, I
examination.
can't.
Yes.
Guys, I'm going
So
to
if the,
explode.
and you also had been apprised before you began your examination that the incident in question took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew as you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, the vehicle had to have been driven by definition from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton.
This
back
is
to
exactly what I
Canton,
said.
correct?
Yep.
I was informed that the car was recovered in Dighton.
And then Jen
And
came drove it
ultimately
at some point.
Either driven back or towed back. One of the
Yep,
ways, some way it ended up back in Canton.
This is
correct?
exactly what I said, you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
my God.
So if Dighton is, how far?
Early
would you
crystal
say
ball
Dighton
strikes
is from
again.
Canton?
Again, I'm really guessing. I would say maybe a half an hour.
30 miles?
Potentially. I
with
don't
all
know
the
exactly.
weather,
I was never in
The other
Dighton.
thing, you guys, is with all the
So-
weather, the odds of something like that just staying there, especially if it's plastic, because it would be lighter weight than if it was glass. I think that I can already see it, y'all. It's going to be a thing that this is plastic from the fucking taillight that got there when they were manhandling it in the Lally port. How much you want to bet?
A according to your notes, the glass pieces that we're looking at on the back of this bumper would have traveled, let's call it for round figures, about 60 miles in a
Yeah.
blizzard.
But having said
before you
that,
saw it.
that's like every witness so far.
I don't know when the glass pieces were
Single one.
ended up on the bumper, so I couldn't say.
And of course, you
Fuck,
knew
y'all,
that
I'm
on
com-
February 1st,
We're getting
you were
there.
a few
He's
days
he's laying the
earlier,
foundation.
on the
Oh my god, I'm so
29th,
excited.
there had been a pretty significant snowstorm here in Massachusetts. correct?
Literally,
Yes,
you
I did have
guys,
that information.
I literally just said that. This is great. I'm gonna play a new game where I try to predict what the next thing is.
And that blizzard included high winds, freezing rain, snow, all,
Yep,
all the good
yep.
stuff. With the
Like
blizzard,
I just
correct?
said, all
I
the
don't
weather.
recall the exact
Woo!
weather conditions of the blizzard.
But
Oh,
irrespective,
for fuck's sake.
after
Madam.
all of that, whatever that was,
If you
you
have,
saw these 5 pieces
should she have any doubt, she can just ask Lally what the weather was like.
just sitting perched on the top of the bumper, not,
Yep,
not
there it
embedded
is.
in any way.
There it
correct?
is.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And you
Love it.
recovered those with little bitty tweezers, correct?
Yes.
And she didn't even record that in her notes. So
We can take this down. With the court's
Yep.
permission. You testified on direct examination that you also found a hair on that rear panel, the quarter panel of the car.
oh boy.
Yes, at the time of the scene, I noted it was an apparent hair, correct?
And
Do
the
they-
apparent hair,
do
and
they-
I'll try to use that same word. I keep
Okay,
forgetting
wait,
it.
next
You'll correct me.
guess. I assume that when there's, talk about the hair belonging to John O'Keefe, I assume it was DNA tested and was found to be a match for John O'Keefe. Now, having said that, I don't think that means anything because they were a couple and they both rode in that vehicle, whatever. As we know, hairs get places, but the way I will die / explode / melt / evaporate if that hair was not tested.
That
I hope it
apparent
was
hair,
tested just because I can't handle it anymore.
was not sitting on the horizontal bumper, but on
Right.
a vertical portion
And
of the.
I forgot about that point. That was the other thing I said earlier. The other prediction I made earlier, I forgot about that part, was that they were not in the same location. And everything we've heard all along, has been along the lines of they were together in the bumper. Fucking hell. And I even said that. I was like, when I was looking at that piece of apparent glass, I was like, oh, that looks like plastic. And also, it's not with the hair. Good look at that. The sticker is where the hair is. This is a mess.
quarter panel, correct?
That's correct.
Did you find the hair, or was that hair pointed out to you by somebody else?
I believe I located the hair.
How exactly was that hair secured to that vertical panel, if you can explain that?
It
Right?
didn't appear to be secured in any way.
Yeah,
It
that
was
doesn't make any
just
sense.
on that quarter panel.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
I
it
didn't even think about the
wasn't
hair being
taped,
affected by the weather, but yeah.
No.
Yeah, that makes
wasn't
and
glued,
driving.
wasn't stapled.
No.
So
It
what
was-
he's saying is this, you guys, we and the jury, we're all they're logical. Everyone imagine a hair, you have a hair, and you put it, I don't even know how you get it to stick, first of all, but it's on the outside of your vehicle vertically. And then you drive multiple directions with a 30-minute drive in a blizzard, and that hair is still there.
Was not affixed in any way
Less
whatsoever. It was
than
just
enough.
perched on that vertical
Perched.
panel of the
Fucking
SUV,
hell. Like
correct?
a little
That's
you could-
correct.
You could blow on
And
it and it would
For
come
you
off,
to
right?
remove it, and by the way, you
What a
found this
mess.
at the same time that you found the general time, that you found the glass pieces as well.
That's correct.
Jiggle
So
time?
that hair
General time.
potentially would have had to make that same 60-mile round trip.
Yep.
In the same blizzard.
That's what I just said.
At the
Woo!
time, I don't know when that hair was deposited on
well.
the vehicle.
Really crystal ball.
And it didn't take you much to remove that hair.
Man,
correct?
my God. What
I
a-
picked it up with a pair of tweezers.
It didn't give you any resistance.
Not that I recall.
hairs would just fall off. Like fucking hell.
I'd like to take a look at that hair if we can. I know you've seen it just a few minutes ago. I want to look at it one more time. With the court's permission, these are exhibits 165
I hope they
and
get to the part where they
173.
ask her if it was
165
tested
published, though.
for DNA.
Does that look like a close-up view of, actually, is that Zoom? Yeah. Can we pull that out? Your Honor, may I do this a different way?
All right.
This is actually, with the court's permission,
He's gonna do it a different way. Here, let's zoom through this part of the exhibits. the labeling and the numbering of the exhibits, admitting them into evidence.
Yes.
Approaching. Approach. It's time to approach. You just sing songs for everything they do,
And I can do those very briefly.
even on
Take a
2
look at
times
those four
speed.
photographs and tell me if you recognize the first two to be exhibits 165 and 173. They're not marked on there, but what you earlier looked at. Do those appear to be those two exhibits that you earlier saw?
Yes, I don't know what numbers they were, but I do remember seeing these photos earlier.
Fair enough. And then the second two photos, do those appear to be zoomed photos of the same two photographs?
Yes, they do.
With the court's permission, I would ask that the zoomed photos be marked as next in order.
Is there any objections to Lally?
No, Your
May I approach?
Yes.
Okay. So we are 3 minutes behind the court feed. So we can't zoom all that we want, more than likely, y'all. Or we will be relegated for real time when Lally comes
Yes.
back for redirect.
All right, we're looking at what's previously been marked as 165. Does that appear to be a photo of the hair?
Would it be possible just to zoom in on that,
Absolutely.
the
This is not
sticker?
an eye contest.
Anything is possible when you
And just a
believe
little bit, I'm just trying to read the letter on the white marker. Yes.
Don't
so
we know it's
that-
letter D? I
correct.
remember that from earlier.
So that hair looks, as we're
Letter D.
looking at it, you will agree that hair looks like almost like a backward C, correct? In other words, it looks like it's
I
more
can't even-
vertical than flat in that.
Oh, that's the hair? God damn it. That's so-
I would agree it looks like a C on the side of the car.
What if it's a dog hair? Do they,
Exhibit
again,
173.
who knows if it was tested at all? Could be a dog hair though, right? All right.
And this is the same hair photographed a second time, correct?
If we could, again, just zoom
Oh,
in on that
I
sticker.
can actually see it better from this angle.
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Hartnett, does it look to you like between the first and the second photographs, that hair has moved?
That's why it's easier as a C. Oh my
Not
God.
an inverted C, but a C.
Oh my God. Well done, Jackson. Well done. That's why it was easier to see. Holy fuck.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I see the
Oh,
two
no,
ends,
ma'am.
which may have been,
Go back.
may still be making contact with the vehicle. I
Holy
can't
shit.
make that determination
Oh
based
my
on this photo.
God.
Fair enough. So that was sort of my next question. I'll just
Oh, wow.
Did it appear to you that the hair, which is curled,
Wow.
was making contact with the vehicle on the top point?
Okay. Next prediction from the Squirrely crystal ball is as follows. It will be suggested and perhaps argued in closing arguments, but it'll be suggested or hinted at that because, like I just said from the previous one, I was like, oh, you can't even see that hair. And like, you could, A, you could barely see it. B, it didn't look plausible that it would be stuck on or whatever. I wonder if it's going to be suggested that they moved the hair into a different position because it is in a different position so that it looked A, more visible, and B, like it could have maybe just been stuck better because they maybe realized people would be like, how did this hair stay on during a blizzard and with driving? Squirrely crystal ball.
I would say from this photo, I honestly can't tell if those two ends are coming off the vehicle or touching the vehicle. I just can't make that determination.
But you would agree that that hair was somewhat precariously perched on that vertical quarter panel, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain the objection, ask it differently.
We can, Mr. Bates, we'll finish with that. With the court's permission, we can take that down. If you take a look at the zoomed photos that have just been marked as 259 and 260 respectively, can you take a look at those side by side? And when you're finished, I'd like to ask you a question or two about those.
Okay.
Does it look from your perspective, seeing those photos side by side, that the hair appears to have gently moved just a little bit between the two photos?
I just don't think I can make that determination. They're taken from different angles. I just
No.
don't know. I can see
ma'am,
that they have
I'm
curling
sorry,
both, but I
no.
don't know
No.
which ends are making contact or if the ends are coming off the vehicle.
You can tell which way it's
Yeah,
facing, ma'am.
Yes.
Wow, that's bad. That's bad. That was, dude. Wow. Amazing that she even has the gall to say that because it's so obvious. The jury's got to be like shaking their heads. This is impressive.
One
for,
more exhibit I'd like to take a quick look at.
what we've seen
ask a
already.
couple
This is
of
still
questions
impressive
about.
in terms of
Exhibit 195 which is
Fuckery.
a shirt.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes, I do.
And you saw this just a few minutes ago on direct examination as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You indicated that you took 2 swabs from the, quote, area around damage, numbers 1 through 9 of the gray sweatshirt, end quote, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, can you describe for the jurors how you took those swabs, and were they of all 9 or a select number of the 9? How did you do that?
I moistened 2 cotton swabs with sterile water, and then I took those 2 swabs. May I use the pointer to just show?
Of course.
And I vigorously swabbed around. I don't know if it's working. There we go. This entire area. So every area of damage,
A vigorous swab.
I swabbed around all of it using the same 2 swabs. So it was one collection from all those areas.
One collection on swab 1 and one collection on swab 2. You just repeated the process.
No, I took them exactly at the same time. So I held the 2 swabs together.
Oh.
And as I'm swabbing, I'm rotating the swabs to make sure that all the exterior of the swab is coming into contact with that material in order to collect equal samples, or at least attempt to collect equal samples on each swab.
Okay, we can take that. Thank you. And you indicated that this was the first time that you had done swabbing specifically for the purpose of trying to find either canine DNA or animal DNA.
That's correct.
Had you been trained at the time that you took the swabs, had you been trained or received any training or any teaching about the relationship between keratinized tissue and DNA?
Is
No.
he going to get to the dog? Is that what he's going to do? Oh
What
my God.
keratinized tissue is?
No.
Super Planner Girl, they're still talking about the tiny hair on the car that is suspicious in all the ways.
Did you photograph exactly where any of those swabs were taken?
I wonder
or
if
just
he's going
notate
to
it in your notes?
keratin. We
I
heard a lot
notated
about
in my
that
notes.
from
That
Proctor.
overall photo is the photo that I used to describe the sample that I collected.
And I think it probably goes without saying, you didn't videotape your swabbing technique on that shirt either, correct?
That's correct.
You did include a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from T-shirt 717 and shirt 718, correct?
I performed a debris collection on each of those items. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
That is what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a note in your report that you had recovered some debris or done some debris collection, correct?
That's correct.
And you indicated in your note that the debris was from shirt 717 and shirt 718. Is that right?
Oh boy.
May I refer to my notes?
Is there another shirt? Fucking hell. Is everything okay, Super Planner Girl? I hope you're super. You're always a Super Planner Girl to me, no matter what.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And shirt 717 is which shirt?
The orange t-shirt,
And shirt 718 is which shirt?
the long sleeve gray shirt.
All right. So you took, is the right word scrapings?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You took scrapings from both shirts.
Scrapings.
Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And then combined those together and submitted that as the quote unquote debris that was assigned a new item number 7-18.18, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So as you sit here, you don't know where the debris came from specifically, other than the 2 shirts. Could be one, could be the other, could have been a combination.
Wow, that's a mess. What
Yes,
the
that's
hell is
correct.
wrong with these people? Seriously. That's all good. I just want to make sure you're
Did
okay.
you describe in detail anywhere the actual debris that you found? Little fibers, little hairs?
Probably
little
not. I had to
pieces of
guess.
green or blue or whatever.
If I was able to pick out a hair or a fiber, I would have attempted to do that from the debris collection. The debris collection was just anything that was left on the item that I was not able to pick off.
Okay. And you did not note any debris item that was plastic or plasticine.
Ah, good. Very good, Alan.
No, I did not make any kind of observations on the debris
Excellent.
itself.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered, correct?
That's correct.
And there was no photograph taken of the debris,
That's correct.
and there was no videotape of the debris collected.
Correct.
Wow.
When you received item 717 and item 718, that came in one evidence bag, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Your Honor, may I approach briefly? Yes.
It's so crazy. It's like it's like my nephew, who's 6, could
Mind taking a look
go
at
up
that?
to a
That's
crime scene,
photograph.
do a better job using common sense on how
I'd
to
ask you
collect
to
and
review
label
tell me
things
if you
than
recognize
any
it.
of these people. It's wild.
Not the photograph, but what's depicted in the photograph.
Shout out to Ellis.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize that?
This is the container that contained it's a photo of the brown paper bag that contained the long sleeve gray shirt as well as the orange t-shirt.
May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. If I could ask that be marked as next in order.
Any objections to Lally?
No, Your Honor.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Approach, approach. It's time to approach. Do.
This evidence bag notes, let me start over. This evidence bag is in the condition that it was in when you received it, meaning the writing on the back was already there when you received it.
Yes, that's
Oh,
correct.
boy.
And it notes that these items of evidence were collected by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the date of collection was January 29, 2022, is that right?
I'd have to relook at that
Of course.
for the date.
May I approach? Yes.
Approach, approach. It's time to approach.
Yes, it didn't.
Display the,
So you got an answer.
My
Right, I think-
apologies.
my mistake.
The date on there is January 29th, 2022.
Here we go.
May I, display
Yes.
the-
Here we go. Approaching up to the witness stand.
Oh, does that look like what you're looking at? Exhibit.
Taking the documents from the witness hand. Taking the documents from the witness hand. No, that's
That's correct.
Thank you.
Witness's hand. We need to
If I can stand
foster
out of
the
the way.
hand.
You see Trooper Proctor's name on the evidence bag as the person that collected it.
Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
And it also has a description of
Well
what's in the
said.
bag, and it shows
Well
both
said.
the orange t-shirt
Fucking
and the
hell.
sweatshirt collected together and
Right.
bagged together,
Again,
correct?
Again,
Yes, that's correct.
I will say it again. Shout out to Ellis. My nephew would have common sense enough to know you shouldn't put them in the same bag. Like,
Once again, on the upper right is January 29, 2022, correct?
but like we
Yes,
shouldn't be
that's-
surprised,
You
right?
have no way of knowing as you sit here the journey that those two
The journey.
items of evidence took before they got to you in your lab, correct?
Maybe
Yes,
they
they're tracked as soon as they're entered into
maybe
our
they
lab
went on
system
vacation
by
with
us.
I
and
didn't
take
hear
us
any
in
of that.
trash.
My apologies. The
Tracked.
item would be tracked as soon as it's submitted to our lab by us, by the crime lab.
Thank you. We can take this down, Your Honor. Thank you.
Was it left down the lolly port for days before that happened, just like the solo cups? Or
The debris that you ultimately got from the shirt or shirts, you don't know if that debris may have been in the bag and the shirts picked up the debris in the
Right.
bag or otherwise, correct?
Correct.
Because they were housed together,
Yes,
stored together.
that's correct.
excellent.
Were you aware before you began your analysis on either one of those shirts that those shirts had been found at the bottom of an ambulance, on the floor of an ambulance?
Oh, boy.
at one point?
Oh
I
boy.
don't have any knowledge of where the clothing, what condition the clothing in was before I got it.
Okay, and that probably answers my next question, but just for the record, you don't have any knowledge personally as you sit here that either one of the shirts or both of them were floor of a hospital room as well.
I have no information about where
Fucking
the
hell.
shirts were.
Really? Fuck.
One of the things that you did indicate was in your
Happens to be a place where there's lots of blood too, right? I mean, my God. Is
to
that
maintain sanitary conditions with evidence to avoid contamination, correct?
That's correct.
For instance, you wouldn't want to take the swabs that you so carefully utilized to swab an item of evidence and then, oops, drop it on the floor. You would have to discard that
Yes.
item and then
This
start over.
is so reminiscent of the solo cup with the dog.
If a swab is dropped on the floor, we don't discard it. We would preserve it, but that would be a note that we would have to put in our file, and that
Somehow.
yes, that swab would not be tested any further.
Candace, they find a
Because of
way.
The possibility of cross-contamination.
Correct.
And at least according to the evidence bag, those two shirts were in the custody and control of which trooper before you got them?
Trooper Proctor collected the evidence according to the bag.
Thank you. Ultimately, Ms. Hartnett, every single piece of taillight material and clothing that you've described in your testimony today on direct and cross-examination, all of that evidence was presented to you.
I
from
imagine
the
bunny
lab
ears with that
at one
evidence.
time in one bundle on March 14th, 2022, correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Which portion was
it really
in the
incorrect,
lab
though?
before March
For
14th?
real?
The tail light that I collected from the vehicle was submitted prior to that, as well as any other items that I took from the vehicle.
Okay, that was a great answer and my mistake. I knew that and I forgot. So the taillight housing you took on the first?
Correct.
Okay. Every other item other than the taillight housing itself, which you took personal possession of, all the taillight fragments, all the clothing, orange shirt, gray shirt, jeans, shoes, everything was all submitted in one fell swoop on March 14th, 2022. Is that right?
No.
What else am I
Okay.
incorrect about?
So I just wanted to clear anything that was collected from the vehicle, as well as the swabs from the red Solo cups and the drinking glass that I was presented with at Canton PD was submitted by me on February.
Where did the drinking
1st.
glass come from, though?
The
Fucking
other
hell,
items,
I-
the clothing items were submitted together. And then there was another submission that had the fingernails and the known blood standards. So there were several submissions. So I'm
Y'all,
hesitant to lump it all into one because it
I
did.
don't actually remember at this point. Has the person who did the drinking glass found it? Did that already come in testimony, or is this just like another one of those things where we've assumed that it exists and that it is what they say it is and that it got there not from that? Like, because I'm sure I don't recall any specific testimony of the person who found the glass, right? I'm trying to think. Mr. Solo Cups, he may have talked about it, but I think wasn't the one that found it. I feel like he may have. Do you guys remember? Do you guys remember who found the glass and if they've testified? Or is this just another one of those myths, just like everything else in this trial?
It happened on different dates.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what I thought as well. Yeah.
Earliest
that's-
submission, with the exception
Oh
of the
my
stuff
God.
you actually took with you from
Because
the site,
like,
the taillight
and
material.
herein lies the problem, because she's testifying based on an assumption that that's accurate, and there's no foundation for it, right? It's not. We've not laid the foundation for that. I swear to God, everything in this
Taillight
trial
housing and whatever swabs you took.
is
All of
mythical.
the other material
like a
was submitted
unicorn.
to the lab, all of the other evidence. The earliest date anything was submitted was March 14th.
An anti-unicorn.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to take another look at my submission
unicorn
forms just to
killer.
clarify.
May I approach?
Yes.
I think I have, it's a
Okay.
two-page document, if I can show Mr. Lally.
Approach, approach. It's time to approach. Time to approach the witness stand.
Submission form?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If you could familiarize yourself with that for just a quick second.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess.
Sorry.
Okay, may I approach one more time now?
Having said that, Super Planner Girl, you missed the very beginning of her direct examination, which we watched, and then I couldn't take Lally anymore, and I think we zoomed. But the very beginning of her cross-examination or direct examination, we learned that she made a big mistake with the hair that she was testing, and they went on about that for a while, about why it was wrong and how it was corrected and what they did to correct it, and then after that, she wasn't allowed to like test hairs or something like that for a period of time. She was like put on like hair probation or something. I don't remember exactly. It's just so right off the bat, we learned from direct examination that, you know, maybe not the best at her job, I guess you could say. Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask you to take a glance at.
Okay.
Approach, it's time to approach. Just take a glance
Do you
at
recognize that document?
documents.
Yes.
What is that document? The second document that I just handed you?
This is a printed chain of custody report from our laboratory information
Oh,
management system.
dear.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to mark the.
You know what's so crazy? In all the other trials, these types of things come in from the prosecution or the state because they're happy to prove the chain of custody, right? Like, remember with Murdoch, they did that exhaustively, but they showed the chain of custody all the way through for every single item, no matter how long it took, how boring it was. They did the whole thing. And here, only in this trial does that come out only from direct, like, or only on cross. Like, never on direct do we get the shit like this that you should normally be having. Here it is on cross. So you know what this means? There's going to be some fucked up thing coming out here. You know.
First document's name again. I want to get it right.
Oh,
It's
you
the
did.
evidence submission form
Okay,
for
gotcha.
submission 7.
Gotcha. Okay.
Evidence submission form for submission 7, 2-page document. If I could have that next in order.
Yeah, she was on hair probation.
Chain of custody. My apologies.
Is there an objection, Mr. Lally?
Yes, to both.
Yeah,
So the
I
objection
bet.
stands Unless you want to convince me otherwise.
I'll have them marked for ID
Okay.
for the time being. That's fine. If that's okay with the court.
Yes.
The court says it's okay to mark it for ID. I'm just going to narrate everything in song to save myself from going insane over this case. A feeble attempt, but yet we will try. What else can we do? Fucking hell. We've got singing, and then we've got me doing the Lally voice, which has not made an appearance yet today, but I'm sure the day is young, guys. The day is young. And we've got a recap tonight. So the voice will definitely pop up at some point.
You've got a lot of your Post-its on the other one. Do you want to take it off?
I was going to actually ask if I think it would help with this.
Okay.
Go a lot faster with those post-its
The
on.
witness, I guess.
Oh.
Go back to the witness with those, please.
If you could take a look at what's been marked as VV, that's the log. I just want to go through this relatively quickly.
Let's
With
try.
regard to plastic pieces that were submitted, if you look on page, for instance, page 11, where a tab is,
Yep.
that shows that that piece was submitted on March 14th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was a piece submitted on March 14th on page, notated on page 12.
What item are you referring to?
It's a plastic piece.
Yes.
Oh,
correct.
there it is, you guys.
13, another plastic piece.
There it is, the plastic. Okay. Is this the plastic? Is it the clear plastic?
Yes, submitted on March
Opposed to
14th.
glass?
And page
I bet that's
14,
what this
another
is.
plastic piece.
It is. He's going to say it's 5 pieces. That's why I can already tell you. Because remember, earlier she was really pushing back when he was like, "Didn't you say 5 pieces of glass or something?" And she was like pushing back. And I had a feeling. I was like, "Huh," because this is the glass. It's really plastic, right? This is what he's doing. See, he put stuff in the middle.
Yes, that's correct.
Page 15,
Squirrely
another
crystal ball.
plastic piece.
These are going to be the pieces of plastic that they thought, or they're calling it glass. Was there even a drinking glass?
Correct.
I'm still
And
not,
page 17.
you know. Fucking hell. Fucking hell. Can you imagine if you were Karen? Like,
Sorry.
fuck.
Yes, that's correct.
And then if you turn to the next page, page 18, that's the orange t-shirt. It shows its submission date, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's that date?
March 14th.
And then on page, the bottom, very bottom.
I
of page
really
20,
hope this
going into page
restores
21, there's
The
another
relationship with the
item, gray
family and the
t-shirt,
friends
a
and
gray
stuff
sweatshirt.
when they realize what has
Yes, that
happened
was
here.
also submitted on March 14th.
Okay.
It is brilliant, brilliantly awful.
Yes.
Like a what did I say? A nightmare unicorn situation.
So we need those. They're marked for identification.
I'm not sure if I'm going to use it one more time.
Put them up on the bench and you
Put them
can
on the
grab them.
bench. Put them on the bench. Oh, Mr. Jackson, please put them on the bench. I could kick this up a notch because that's how insane I'm feeling with this trial. I could kick this up a notch, especially because we don't have far enough behind to zoom. So
Ms. Hartnett, before you received all of the items that we've talked about and all the items that you've testified about, with the exception of the items that you physically took with you from the Sally Court,
the Lally part.
everything else that you've testified to was submitted to you on March 14th or after, correct?
That's correct.
And all submitted by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Oh boy.
I don't
Wow.
know they were all submitted by the Norfolk County Detective Unit. I don't know the specific officer that necessarily dropped them off at the lab.
He's like, your answer does not
Can
matter.
you
man.
answer the question based on the log information that you have and the chain of custody that's in front of you? Can you answer the question whether Trooper Proctor or anybody else stored the taillight lens material and the clothing in the same place or in the same bag before you received it?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that question one more time?
Based on the log information that you have, in other words, the chain of custody that's in front of you, that you can absolutely look at and determine where things were and who had them,
Bravo.
can you tell us
Will she need a flashlight?
whether or not Trooper Proctor or
She
anybody
need a
else
flashlight or reading glasses.
stored any of the taillight material and the clothing in the same place or even in the same bag?
No, I don't have any information to how the evidence was treated before it was received in the lab.
I just have a thought. I just want to say, going forward, for any witness that feels like they need a flashlight to see, they can ask Matt McCabe, aka Meerkat McCabe. And for anyone who's like, oh, I need reading glasses, but I don't have any, they can ask Brian Albert Sr. if they may borrow a pair from his bed.
In fact, that's because there is no chain of custody
That's
for
what he
that data.
keeps them.
I'm sorry, for those
Because everyone
items. There's no
knows
data
that's a
for
good
those
idea.
items predating March 14th, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You don't personally have any chain of custody information about those items we just went over predating March 14th, do you?
I personally do not have any data that would indicate where those items of evidence were prior to them being accepted into the lab.
And one of the reasons why you have such detailed chain of custody protocols is to maintain control over where items go and how they're handled and by whom, correct?
That's chain of custody.
That's correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a good time to just mention briefly fruit of the poisonous tree, guys. You all might be familiar with this term, but when you've got problems with the chain of custody, yet again, how are we here? How are we here? How? Because fruit of the poisonous tree, when you've got problems in the chain of custody, anything that's a result of that thing prior that was fucked, it's all fucked. I mean, this was all fucked from the get-go, but like, even if all you, like, okay, even if you get rid of the, like, in our minds, let's imagine that in our wildest imagination, this trial, let's say that there was no solo cups, there was no leaf blower, there was none of the other shenanigans, right? There was no conflicting testimony and all this shit, right? Let's say that they actually proved the injuries, blah, blah. But then after all that, there were issues with the chain of custody with the evidence. That should be enough that none of that rest of that matters. That's if you've got all that other shit not being fucked, like it, which it, in this case, it is already fucked. In my mind, I just, oh my God, you guys, I can only imagine like what EDB and Runkle are like right now. They're probably having panic attacks. I mean, I'm on the verge. This is so hard to wrap the head around.
Anything, Mr. Lally?
Insane. Fucking lollipop. My mind cannot process this. He looks redder than usual, doesn't he?
Just a couple.
I feel like he usually looks kind of pale. Now he looks kind of red. Or is it just my imagination?
Vehicle that you observed, the defendant's vehicle in the Sally Port of the Camp Police Station, that was in generally overall good condition, other than the areas of damage that you noted on the right rear, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
No. She was asked, you guys, she was asked that question on cross. and she dodged that. Do you guys remember? That is, I'm sorry. I thought, what? I thought he was going to ask her that so that she could answer it in the same weird way that she did before. I don't. She went on and on and on dodging it. And she was like, I don't feel qualified, but then she would kind of backtrack on it and say, like, rephrase the question. And he was like asking that literal question. Was it in good? It was in good condition. You guys, help.
Swabbing,
Oh,
the swabs that you took
dude,
from the taillight housing that you then later submitted to DNA. That was a taillight
Just
housing
asked that
you
exactly.
took from the Canton Police Station, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You logged
No
that in.
credibility at this point.
Yes, I did.
You took those swabbings and then you packaged them and you sent them to the DNA, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And all of those swabbings.
Thank you,
were
Blackwater.
taken from
Yes.
Exterior.
Thank you.
area
I know
beds.
we haven't complimented her. I'm so pissed off right now about this. This is just such a, every type of egregious miscarriage of justice here. But she does have clean hair. Thank you. Also, she has pretty colored eyes. They're like a pretty bluish green. Very nice eyes, I will say. Thank you for Blackwater. Dude, you always remind me when I forget about making the compliment for the witness, and you always remind me. Thank you for that. Because it's hard sometimes to remember when you're in the midst of all this nonsense, but Blackwater never forgets.
Taillight assembly, is that correct?
Yeah, she does have nice cheekbones. Yeah,
The objection sustained is to the form.
and maybe some freckles there too.
With regard to those swabbings that you took from the taillight housing, where on the taillight housing did you take them?
I took them from what would have been the exposed area of the taillight, should the taillight have been intact. So I did not collect from any of the interior portions of the taillight that would have been protected by the exterior plastic piece.
Now, at the
Ma'am.
time that you were looking at
Right.
the vehicle in
Especially in
the
this
Sally Port
case.
of Canton Police Station, do you recall
Motion for him to call it the Lally.
what the temperature was inside the garage?
No, I don't have that information.
Was the temperature the same inside the garage as it was outside of the garage? If you know, was it?
She
heated
said
at
she
all?
didn't know,
I
Lolly.
don't know if it was heated.
Fucking hell.
As far as the vehicle itself was concerned, when you saw it in the garage, did you see any sort of frozen snow or ice or anything like that on the exterior of the vehicle?
Not to my recollection, no.
I have nothing further on.
Okay.
On that limited bit,
One follow-up question.
Okay, and then we get a new witness. I wonder who it is.
May I approach?
yes.
Who do you guys think it's going to be?
Would you take
I'm thinking
one
it's
more look at
Lally.
that, what's been
Maybe.
marked for identification is you. That's the evidence submission form, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Who signed that form?
Objection.
How? Why?
So the objection sustained unless you want to see me at sidebar.
I'll
Sidebar.
ask it a different way.
How?
Whose name is on the bottom of the form?
Objection.
It's the same question. Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up to sidebar?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I have?
Oh, you know why that's subjective to? Because the person, okay, again, this begs the question again, if someone's going to call to a proctor, because the objection, I just figured out what the objection is, because he would have to be the one to testify that he signed it. That's why she can't. And so, but this would be something that you would be doing, right? This is one of those things that makes me think, I wonder if no one's going to call him because he's bad for everybody. Because all these witnesses that they've impeached so far that refuted what the police report said, but the police report was written by him, that's where it could be a downside for the defense to call him. Because maybe they're going to roll with, they got the jury already like, yeah, everybody's saying that the police report's wrong. That's nonsense, right? And it's obvious why the prosecution maybe wouldn't call him. So I'm wondering if that's what this is about, because they are realizing they can't ask him like directly. No, but Butnick has not gone yet either. However, where they're at right now is if they're going to, well, not that there's any organization or rhyme or reason to anything they do, but one could say there would be a reason to, when you're in one law enforcement entity, to stick with that one.
You are unmuted.
Stay within the Massachusetts State Police, in other words.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that,
We're going back to,
All right, Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
although,
Thank you.
my bad, actually, Trooper Butnick is from the Mass State Police, isn't he? Why was I thinking Canton PD? No, he would be, if he's a trooper, he would be from, so yeah, so it could be Trooper, it could be Butnick, it could be Proctor, it could also be Tully. All of them would fit within this category of Massachusetts State Police. So let's find out who it is.
Yes.
This person. Who are you? Not what I expected. She looks terrified. Don't blame her. My God, who are you? Get my banner.
All right,
Wow,
Miss
she
Squirrely,
looks
whenever you're
not
ready.
good. Either. Beautiful hair though.
Good
I love that.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last
I
name?
love the cut and the collar.
My name is Ashley Vallier, spelled Vallier.
And Ms. Vallier, what do you do
Wait,
for work?
I need to hear her last.
I'm a forensic scientist at the Massachusetts State Police Crime
Here's the
Laboratory.
spelling of her last name again. Sorry.
What do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist at Massachusetts State Police.
No.
My name is Ashley Vallier, spelled Vallier.
Vallier.
Ms. Vallier, what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
All right, so Mix Vallier, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up.
She's speaking loud and clear, madam.
Turn the air conditioning off when we can't hear you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mr.
And
Lally.
how long have you been employed at the State Police Crime?
Just over 5 years.
And if I could ask you just a little bit about your educational background, starting with your undergraduate work, where did you go to school for that?
Okay.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree
I'm gonna jump forward a little bit because it's just gonna do the
in
background.
biochemistry and cell biology
Yeah,
from
like
University of
back in that
California.
area.
Excuse me. Physical match analysis is looking at
Okay.
2 or more items that have broken or irregular edges,
Okay.
and seeing if they fit together like
Okay.
a sort of like a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
And when you were doing those examination of various items with
That's
respect to that,
Y'all, what a
types of
cool,
instruments are
what a cool field of work. I feel like we don't actually hear testimony from people that do that very often because it's such a specific thing. But that, like, can you imagine how good she would be at puzzles though? Like that is what a sick job. That sounds like fun. It's like a puzzle.
using or what types of
Right?
ways are you looking at these?
Yeah, very pretty.
Instrumental perspective.
It's mostly the stereo zoom microscope, which is a microscope that's mounted on a stand, so that it can look at larger objects and
Maybe this is who Charlie Adelson needed for his trial.
not just slides like in,
So
like
in
in
order,
science class.
in order to make Dan Rashbaum's puzzle work.
Now, over the course of your work with the lab,
Shout out to Dan Rashbaum.
you're familiar with the lab is accredited, is that correct?
Correct.
What
That's
type of
accredited
question is
by,
that, Lolly?
An organization known as.
Okay, we're gonna skip past this bullshit.
And
We
with
already know,
respect
the
to
lab,
what
blah,
accredited
blah.
to Do with regard to some clothing items.
Now we can listen again.
Associated with the John Oates.
I believe I later received debris that was collected from those clothing items.
And so debris specifically, do you
I
recall
bet she's
which
never
clothing
testified
item was
before because she's so young.
I do not without looking at my notes.
Your Honor, with court's permission, may.
Oh, she looks terrified.
Yes, go right ahead.
She, can you imagine, like, what about, like, imagine, okay, someone like her, she seems like a reasonable, nice person who wouldn't get caught up in shenanigans and probably just did what they said and had no, you know what I mean? Like, did her puzzle pieces. Imagine if you're that person and you are exposed to information about this case. Of course, she couldn't be watching the trial, but, she could know information prior. Depending on what the rules are, they haven't actually talked very much about the witness exclusionary rule. Actually, they haven't actually asked them about it. So maybe there even isn't one. Because usually when there's a witness exclusionary rule, they ask them, have you seen or heard anything about the case? I mean, they ask the jury, but anyway, so who knows? My thought, though, is regardless of any of the rules, she certainly would know things, probably, right? And like my point, I guess, is imagine if you're one of these people who's like a normal person and you realize how fucked everything is and how like horrifying it would be to have to testify under these circumstances. Ugh.
And is your memory refreshed as to which items of clothing you looked at?
Yeah, so it was, well, I didn't look at clothing. I just received the debris that was already packaged. So it was labeled as coming from jeans, boxer shorts, sneakers, a gray long sleeve shirt, and an orange t-shirt.
Now, with respect to each of those items had a lab sort of label number associated with it, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it your understanding that the larger piece of clothing would have been labeled 7 dash something, and then the debris from that clothing would have been labeled 7 dash same thing point whatever? Does that sound familiar?
Point whatever.
It does, yes.
Golly.
And so with specific reference to item 7-18.18.
In reference to what, if anything? My name is Lally.
Yes.
I talk like that.
Specifically, I'm sorry, debris from an orange t-shirt and a gray
What,
long
if anything, in reference to myself?
Correct.
Lally.
And from your
I told you
analysis
guys it was
of,
gonna happen
that
with voice.
debris, what if any
Ugh.
examination did you do of that debris that was provided?
How much, if any, more of him can I tolerate? The answer is
So each of these items was packaged in a fold. And so I opened up the fold and looked at the items under the stereo zoom microscope and documented it with photos.
And as far as that item 7-18.18, what if anything did you observe as far as contained within the debris from that item specifically?
May I look at my notes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There was apparent dirt debris, many black, gray, blue, and orange apparent fibers, several pieces of red apparent plastic, several apparent hairs, one piece of green material, and one piece of clear apparent plastic.
And the
did you guys
clear
hear the
apparent
P
plastic,
word?
what if any measurements did you conduct
Wow.
in reference to that?
It measured approximately 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch.
Now, from your analysis of those items,
Y'all, you would have thought
what if anything?
Super Proctor could have at least fabricated or finagled, both some glass to chuck in there just to give the glass story some credibility, right? I mean, amazing though. Like it's like a half-assed job to even be a piece of shit, corrupt cop, and like half-assing that. Like I can't.
Thing.
Yeah.
Do you know where within the lab they went following your analysis there?
Yep.
I believe
Agreed.
another analyst in the trace unit
Agreed.
then looked at those items.
And that would be are you familiar with another person who works in the trace unit named Christina Hanley?
I am.
And so what, if any, training does Ms. Hanley have that you do not have in order
Wait, why are you not asking her that? Fucking hell, why do I bother?
to conduct that sort of further
They could
analysis?
object to this.
So Christina Hanley is
Swear to
the
God.
trace supervisor, and she is signed off to do casework in fibers, miscellaneous paint, glass. I see the other trace disciplines that I'm not.
So essentially, those items contained within that debris were something that you examined microscopically, made observations of, took measurements, and then they went to Ms. Hanley.
Correct.
Now, with respect to, you mentioned a variety of plastic items that you examined, correct?
Of the initial items that I looked at?
Yes.
Yes.
And what were those, generally speaking, what were those initial items that you looked at?
There were many different items containing that I believe were recovered from an address, but I would have to look at my notes to.
Go ahead.
That is amazing. She doesn't even know the address. Holy shit. Wow. So that's it.
They were all labeled as coming from, as recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Yeah, no.
What types of
Yeah, I
items
think
were
also
they?
because there's a huge and a very obvious disparity with every single witness on how much the prosecution objects and how little the defense objects. I think we were actually talking about this a little bit last night. So I agree. I mean, this is, yeah. Why, like, honestly, and I've said this before, so much of what Lally does, if not all of it, is like objectionable. That if they were to actually object every time they could, we would be here in 1,000 years still on this witness.
Specifically that you had observed?
So it was many pieces of apparent plastic and apparent glass
Here, DSN,
and one drinking straw.
you ready to be outraged?
And those items were
It just
generally
gets
labeled
worse.
as item 7-5
It
and
just gets worse.
7-19. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
And with reference to the process in general terms of when you receive these items, can you explain?
Yeah, the defense usually objects. That's again, this is all backwards, right? The defense in this trial barely objects and the prosecution objects a fuck ton. Oh, but we have a request. It's Pootie time. Doo-doo-doo. Every time. It's great. And you know what else? It's always great because there's always a different backdrop for his beautiful face every time we do it. Lovely. Always full of surprises. That
Into the jury, sort of your
just
process,
surprise.
what you did and what you looked at as you went through each of those.
Yeah. Yep.
Sure. So for beginning a physical match case, you always look at the questioned items first, which are the ones that you don't know where it came from. Like
I didn't
here,
know.
they're labeled as coming from the road, so you don't know where their actual source of origin is. And so what we'll do is we'll scan that item into my custody. And then I will document the packaging with photographs. And then I'll open that item and then document that item as it is.
Black Witter. Why you? Just remember, Black Witter, that he loves you. I can't even.
And if there are multiple pieces, each piece will get a designator like piece A, piece B, piece C.
Love you back.
All this gets documented, written down in my notes and in photographs. If any of those pieces look like they could possibly fit together, then I will look under the stereo zoom and see if they do in fact fit together, and document it if they do. And then once I've finished documenting that, I'll repackage it in the original packaging. And then if there are multiple items, like in this case there were, then once that first item is sealed up, then I'll clean my bench and then I'll open the second item and do the same thing until all of the items have been documented.
What if every time it shows Lally, I replace it with Coot's eyes? That could be
Again, if
fun.
you could describe to the jury sort of the physical process of what you did in this case with respect to these items as far as how.
With respect to, I'm Lally. With respect to myself, I'm Lally.
So like I said, I opened up each of these items individually, took photos, took notes, looked at them under the stereo zoom microscope, and then looked at my photos after I had looked at all of them. They'd all been packaged in their original packaging. And then I looked at the photographs to see if any of those pieces could possibly fit together.
Like a puzzle.
And then once I looked at the photos and saw that it looked like there were possible physical match fits among those questioned items, then I opened up those items and looked to see if they, like in real life versus just on photos, see if they could have a potential physical match. And then if it looked like it did, then I brought them together and looked at that in the stereo zoom to confirm if there was a physical match.
Oh my God, I feel so bad for her. She looks terrified. And you know what's crazy? So far, it seems like she's the only person who like did her job correctly so far in this whole thing. But because I guarantee you it's because she's young, probably is a big part of it. And it's probably her first time testifying. And like, you know, one could reasonably assume that all these other people have more experience, should be like, you know, providing really good testimony that is, you know, accurate and done properly and whatever. But little does she know what her competition is in this case. Solo cuts.
May I approach?
Yes.
Approach, approach. It's time to approach. I may have already told you this, but my brother testifies as an expert quite frequently. Expert witness. Shout out to Mant.
This way I'm showing you a series of 9 photographs. Just ask you to look at those until we finish.
Excellent. Oh, wait, expert. Wait, there's no experts though. Witness, I guess you mean. Unless you're on a different day. Wait, there's only been one expert so far in this trial, and it was the dog lady, so, which is wild. That's so wild. How? Just how? I forgot about that. That's so insane. It's all insane. I'm becoming insane because of this trial, obviously. Do you recognize these? Oh, I'm just gonna ask them. That doesn't really work.
Do you recognize those?
Fucking hell.
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Item 7-5.
And is that how it was presented to you or shown to you as far as the evidence bag that you opened and the items that were contained within?
I mean, this is just a picture of the seal, not the entire bag, but yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth seeks to introduce the witness in next exhibits. No objection.
I wonder what cross of her is going to look like. Probably very different. I would imagine. I bet it'll be Unetti. Oh, wait, of course it'll be Unetti. We just heard him talk. Duh. Y'all. Well, this is happening because we're not far enough behind to where I can zoom all the time. So, you know what this calls for? Wait, hold on. Hello, that's not a good key. Here we go.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photographs directly?
Okay.
Oh, darn. I need a different key for that. Hold on.
Ms. Tillman, if I could have photograph 1905. Explainer, what's up on the screen is photograph 1905, which has now been marked as exhibit 260.
I have a good idea.
Do you recognize that?
I do.
And is that the evidence back that you were presented with regard to items labeled as 7-5?
That's the seal on it. Yes.
Now, just in general terms, as far as this process that you're talking about, sort of fitting the puzzle pieces together, how long and how laborious a process did that entail?
In this case specifically,
Yes.
there were many items to look at, so it did take quite a bit of time.
So that was me.
And if I could have photograph 1908. And do you recognize what's up on the screen? Now marked as exhibit 263.
I do.
Is that one of the pieces that you had from item 7-5?
Those are the 3 pieces in item 7-5.
So the 3 pieces from that were all red, apparent plastic pieces from that same item. Is that correct? Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Hello, darkness, come to talk with you again. Cause a vision softly creeping, but it seems all I was would be. And a vision that was planted in my brain, every day, within the sounds of silence. So whenever there's silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, there were streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp.
Do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The seal and then the items from item 7-6.
And what's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed when you were doing your analysis in the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, Commonwealth seeks to introduce the witness in this.
And in the naked light I saw 1,000 people, maybe more. People hearing without thinking. People summing without listening. People writing songs and voices never shared. No one dared disturb the sound of silence. Okay, I'm gonna put the car up. So I'm not even. Well, there's nothing to really hear right now anyway, but you know. Not to mention that song has a million verses.
And Your Honor, with court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs.
Simon and Garfunkel. Okay, let's see if we can put it on a little bit quicker because we have a little bit of room. Just a little bit. Oh, Lally, it's so slow. Oh, uh-oh. No input signal. Oh, wait, my thingy is blocking it. Here. Yeah, no input signal. Disaster! Emergency! Oh, fucking hell. Y'all. No wonder they all say, God bless the Commonwealth and this good court, right? Oh, we're just looking at this.
So, next to what's up on the screen, and that's photograph one.
Pieces of, wow. Do you guys see what, do you see what I see? Do you guys see this? This is insane. I'm sorry. This is, I have no words. Someone else is going to have to say it for me. I have no words. Do you guys see, like, let me take my little cursor right here. Do you guys see? What did you guys see what that says? Fucking hell. I don't. Somebody else is going to have to say it, not me. What that says there.
That is the evidence bag, the box that contains the items in reference to lab item 7-6. Is that correct?
Correct.
And with reference to that, as far as
Reference to
labeling
Lally.
is concerned, these are items that were submitted by the state police, correct? As far as you know.
Pieces of clear. Insane. I don't even.
Yes.
And from the labeling that's exhibited in
Pieces of clear.
labeling
That's it.
shown and exhibited
Incredible. Fucking incredible. Also, we know that it's not because they ran out of room on the sticker because look, they have at least a little bit of room because they've got the Massachusetts like this, but also this goes to all the way to the edge. So no excuses.
That the item was collected,
right? It's games all around. Puzzle.
Presumably, I don't know because that's not our lab's labeling system.
The sound of Lally. That's, oh my God. Wait, hold on. I don't know how I didn't think of that. The sound of Lally. Yep. Oh, we might have to do another music video, guys. But like, you know, the black and white, like depressing. Oh my God. I can already picture it. And it could just be pictures of Lally. Oh my God. Y'all.
They had different dates on them.
Oh man. Now I'm getting ideas.
I don't know. I don't know.
God. Yeah, do it. Yeah, I'm curious. Let us know what he's saying. Is he going to be saying the earth is flat? Probably.
And again, what's up?
Y'all, I have to pop out and let Frodo out real quick. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Just a second.
Now, what's up on the screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 272. These were the items that were marked within that box or that bag of item 7-6. Is that correct?
Correct.
There's 2 pieces of clear plastic, correct?
Apparent plastic, yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another series of photographs. If you could review those when you're finished. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs, ma'am?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The item 7-8.
And again, fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in the lab with reference to item 7-8.
Yes.
Commonwealth will seek to introduce the minutes. Okay.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photos to the jury as well? Ms. Vallier, with regard to the items that were contained within these variety of bags and boxes that you had received as evidentiary items, what, if any, difference was there between sort of color, the size, the shape of the different items that you received?
Sorry, what? Can you repeat the question?
Were they all sort of uniform as to their color, as to their size, as to their shape, or what, if any, differences did you note between?
Between the items that we've already published, or just all of them? And
all of them in general.
So some of the pieces were clear apparent plastic, some were clear apparent glass, some of them were red apparent plastic, some of them were silver colored apparent plastic.
And as far as the size of these pieces of plastic or glass that you had received, how would you describe sort of their physical size, shape, things of that nature?
Some of them were very small, and some of them were larger. I can't tell you the dimensions without looking at my notes.
And you took measurements with respect to each of the pieces that you analyzed, each of the pieces that you examined, and each of the pieces that you ultimately tried to find a match for, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1931. And what's up on the screen is now defined as Exhibit 278. Do you recognize that as the bag of box that contains item 7-8?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1934. Now, what's contained in this exhibit up on the screen, number 279, do you recognize that as contents that were collectively sort of labeled as item 7-8?
I do.
And so from a variety of those different pieces that are depicted up on the screen in exhibits 279, each of them would have been respectively labeled as far as, say, 7-8.1 or 7-8 point something else. Is that fair to say?
So the laboratory numbering system where it goes 7-8.1, that's if you take like a subsample. So if I had collected like debris or something out of this item, that would then be labeled 7-8.1 because it's a new entry in our limb system. These are just the different pieces in 7-8. In my notes, I gave them labels such as piece A, piece B, piece C, all the way down to, well, however many there were.
You labeled them individually as sort of letters, is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1938. And if you could zoom just a little bit in on that.
Thanks, Blair. What's depicted up on the screen within this exhibit of 282, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that one of the pieces that was submitted within this as far as 7-8 that you examined throughout the course of your analysis here, correct?
It was. There's actually two pieces in that. There's the large one in the middle, and there's a very small one up in the corner.
Okay.
Bubbles? Are you talking? Hold on, let me go back just a second. Where were the bubbles?
Individually as sort of letters, is that correct?
Where were the bubbles?
Correct.
That's taillight. Before this? No.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have examined throughout the course of your analysis here, correct?
Oh, are you joking?
It was. There's actually, if I had collected like debris or something off of -8.1,
That's the first. Is it further back than that? I couldn't have been outside that long to start out. No, see, I was there.
Correct. So the laboratory numbering system where it goes 7-8.1, that's if you take like a subsample.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
You recognize as the bag of blocks that contains item 7-8.
Yes.
I think it was here, right?
If I could have 1934. Now, what's contained in this exhibit of
Did it go to the right place?
79, you recognize that as contents that were collectively sort of labeled as item 7-8.
Collectively.
I do.
Of course they were.
From a variety of those different pieces.
I think it was here. I feel like they had just pulled up the manila folder when I left.
Each of them would have been respectively labeled as far as, say, 7-8.1 or 7-8 point something else. Is that fair to say?
So the laboratory numbering system where it goes 7-8.1, that's if you take like a subsample. So if I had collected like debris or something off of this out of this item, that would then be labeled 7-8.1 because it's a new entry in our limb system. These are just the different pieces in 7-8. In my notes, I gave them labels as such as piece A, piece B, piece C, all the way down to.
I did not hear this part, so.
Well, however many there were.
Oh dear.
You labeled them individually as sort of letters. Is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1938. If we could zoom just a little bit in on that.
So is the bubbles are in this thing, right? Is that what you're saying? It has to be.
Do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that one of the pieces?
Right? That was the only things that
7-8
happened.
that you examined throughout the course.
Or did they talk about bubbles and not show bubbles?
It was. There's actually two pieces in that. There's the large one in the middle, and there's a very small one up in the corner.
Okay.
So are the bubbles are in this exhibit, right? I mean, that looks like plastic. You know what it looks like? It looks like one of those takeout containers that you get from a restaurant when they give you a plastic takeout container with a lid. It looks like the bottom of one of those, like identical. I used to have a billion of those things. I don't know if you guys remember the story about the Thai restaurant we used to go to all the time in Boone when I was in college, but the lunch special was hella cheap and it was a ton of food. And every single time you got leftovers in one of those containers. And I never bought Tupperware. I had like 50,000 of those containers. And it looks just like that. That's not glass. That's just not glass. That's not glass. Sorry. No way. She said glass. That's plastic. That's plastic. There's no way around that. Well, okay. If we can't find it, we'll get it on the recap. I don't know why I can't, but let me go forward a little bit because now they're doing a sidebar. Sidebar. It's a sidebar. Or break or something. I had all kinds of sidebar songs for Deputy Heard coverage because I was reading all the sidebars. We did all the, when it was holidays, we did all holiday themed. It was fun. Objection, hearsay. We had a bunch of them, millions. In fact, I started running out Christmas carols and holiday songs. I had to resort to the Becker Suite. What is happening? Okay, now she's back looking at the documents again.
You recognize those, ma'am?
I do.
I'm sure.
What do you recognize those to be?
Whatever it was, too, it'll come up in cross. I mean, we always learn more through crossing.
Photos that I took of item 7-10.
May I approach?
Yes.
Fucking hell, Lally.
And again, Your Honor, with court's permission, if I could publish that to.
What if the court said, no, you don't have permission, I can't listen to you anymore? That's what I would say.
Gentlemen, if I could have photo 1952.
Well, here's another picture.
And Ms. Blair, what's depicted up on the screen is that the bag of box that contains item 7-10.
Yes.
Red broken plastic.
Could have 195.
Fucking hell. Notice how that says plastic. The other one said pieces of clear, and that one says red broken plastic. Or, yeah, plastic. They didn't put tick, but still. That's fucking wild, isn't it? Fucking hell. Did they not think that would be obvious as fuck?
Again, what's up on the screen is that the item that was contained within that evidence.
Yes.
Can I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
At least they measured that, if nothing else.
Series of photographs, if you're going to do those, I'll finish.
Okay, then at the sound of Lally, in restless dreams he walked alone. What if on any cobblestone? Oh, you know what? The street lamp actually is
Ms.
perfect.
Blair, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
And then,
What do you recognize those to be?
The packaging that item 7-9 and 7-19
lovely.
came in.
And what's contained within those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of those items when you receive them at your station and within the
I'll
trace
sing
unit?
your song.
It is.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Almost
Okay.
seek to introduce
So I was
the witness.
saying, I was busy saying that the street lamp is great because that comes up in this trial a lot. So that gives me a lot to work with. There was no light from a street lamp. Due to the blizzard, it was cold and damp. Oh man, here we go, guys. It's happening. Is that the one about the flash in the neon light? Yeah, when my eyes were stabbed by a flash of the neon light. That one would be a tougher one. It's no wonder how Lolly's able to sleep through the night. Objection to the sound of Lolly. There it is. That's it, you guys. Objection to the sound of Lolly. Oh my God. It's gonna have to happen now, guys. See, that was the missing piece, just like the missing piece was Osley Sleep, the other one. The objection to the sound of Lolly was what was missing, and now it's a has to be thing. Oh my God.
And Your Honor, with court's
Maybe
permission.
I can get
may
my mom
approach,
involved.
What's now been marked as 296 through 309.
Like the old days when we had
Yes.
so this is it's dude, it's so much fucking time.
Gentlemen, if I can have photograph 195.
Finally, some pictures. All right.
And again, mixed layer, what's up on the screen is that
Memory, I remember these pictures of the mislabeled evidence
Yes.
Now, with regards
they
to,
took in the
if I
night.
get a photograph 1962. Mixed layer, now what's been depicted up on the screen and been marked as exhibit 297.
Now I long for a trial where chain of custody lives. It's a memory.
Now, contained within this are
Something.
three clear glass or plastic, if you know.
I'd have to look at my notes to see
$1 million
what
fucking question. What's she gonna say, guys?
I wrote them as.
I think that might
Yes.
be
Go
glass.
ahead, look at your notes.
You can see it. There's a difference. I think that might be glass. However, the edging on the bigger piece on the left here, that does look like the notches on the taillight plastic. You know how it has those notchy things? That does look like tail. So therefore, it still could be plastic.
3 pieces of apparent plastic.
Yeah, plastic. Woo! Still no glass, guys. Still no glass. Right?
Thank you very much. The item that's contained above those three pieces of.
Oh wait, Super Planner Girl said she did say glass at some point.
That is item 7-19. That is a black straw.
18 minutes back from where I am now or from the live feed? Oh, the black straw. That's finally they got something. I'll assume 18 minutes back from. No, it has to be further back than that. 'Cause that's when they're on break. So
Yes.
24 minutes back from the feed. Something. You might have missed. You might have missed my Lally song.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish some of these photos to the jury as well? Ms. Vallier, with regard to
Okay.
The items that were contained within these variety bags or boxes that you would receive as
Thank you,
evidentiary
Super Planner
items,
Girl.
what, if any, difference was there between sort of color, the size, the shape of the different items that you received?
Sorry, what? Can you repeat the question?
So was there evidence on the screen or was he talking? Because that will help.
Were they all sort of uniform as to their color, as to their size, as to their shape, or what, if any, differences did you note
Between the items that we've already published, or just all of them in
all of them in general?
So some of the pieces were clear apparent plastic, some were clear apparent glass,
Okay.
some of them were red apparent plastic.
That's got to be the part right there.
Some of them were silver colored
That's gotta
apparent
be it.
plastic.
That's got to be it.
As far as the size of these.
That's got to be it.
Pieces of plastic or glass that you had received, were they, how would you describe?
This is the
sort of
first time
their
I've heard glass.
Size, shape, things of that nature?
Some of them were very small, and some of them were larger. I can't tell you the dimensions without looking at my notes.
And you took measurements with respect to each of the pieces that you analyzed,
Okay.
each of the pieces that you examined, and each of the pieces that you ultimately tried to find a match for, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1931.
So they're about to put evidence on the screen, though. See, that's forward, I believe. But we already tried this.
And what's up on the screen is now marked as exhibit 270.
The problem is that I'm using a live feed. This is one of the difficulties because it constantly, the amount of time, like if you look at my cursor, the amount of time that I'm behind on the feed constantly changes as the feed keeps going. So it makes it tricky to do the math, but we're going to try. Why are we not playing? Hello. This is 28 minutes behind from where the live feed is. So I don't know. See, I can't rewind my own stream. So you probably were rewinding it on my stream, and that's how you found it. So they would be two completely different metrics, essentially. I think he's handing her a picture. Look at this photo. Let's just go back. Wait, is he here?
Items that were marked within that box or
It's
that,
here. I found it because I did not see this.
7-6.
Okay, let me go back a little bit more.
If I could have
Here we go. Found it. It's a miracle. This has got to be it.
And again, what's up?
Oh yeah, I remember now because this is when they lose the signal on their thing, and I made a joke, and then I went to go let photo up. Woo! Squirrel powers. Fuck yeah, there it is. Yep, I see.
It's up on the screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 270.
I can tell you exactly what that is, you guys. That is taillight. That has to be taillight, right? Did she say it's glass? There's no way that's glass. There's no way. Look at the way this is broken. It's not glass. There's just no fucking way. That looks like taillight. You know how it has those dots in it? I swear. She says it's glass and won't lose my mind.
That box or that bag of item 7-6. Is that correct?
Right. It looks like plastic. That's what I'm saying. This looks like plastic. This does not look like that. Like I was like saying it'd be crazy if she says it's glass. This looks like plastic.
Correct.
It appears two pieces of clear plastic, correct?
Yeah.
Apparent plastic, yes.
May I approach the witness room?
So it's not until where we were before I went back where that was the first time I hear them say something like confirmed glass. So that's plastic. But they're not saying, well, let me listen. So in other words, he's not like asking her what that's from. He's just like, what? So to me, I think that looks like that's from the taillight.
Showing you another series of photographs. If you could review those.
Like, is he suggesting that was what she was drinking out of? I don't think so. Because he wants that answer to be glass. Okay, I'm going to jump forward to try to find where we were because I'm curious. Where we were was to they were finally saying they had glass. So that's important. Because we need glass.
Do you recognize those, ma'am?
I do.
What do you recognize those to
Oh, you got louder.
Photos that I took of item 7-10.
That's wild.
be? May I approach?
They must have turned up his mic.
Introduce you as the next exhibit.
Yeah, it is interesting, but I think it looks just like the dot in taillight. Which is funny because with the taillight, they keep talking about how it was all red pieces, but there were that's it's funny because it'll be interesting what happens on cross because he didn't even ask.
Your Honor, with court's permission,
He just left it. What is it? Plastic. Okay. That's it. No context. No follow up.
Photo 1952.
We're gonna learn all the answers on cross here. So
And Ms. Blair was
if indeed she was able to figure out what it was.
Box that contains item 7-10.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have.
Wait, we were past this just a little bit because we got. Here we go. This is where we were. You know, it's funny because remember how I was saying that I would want to have a time machine. In a way, it's kind of like doing that with the live heartbeat, right? Or not time machine, but time travel between that and flying. Were you thinking it was interesting because of the bubble glasses that they had mentioned? I could see that's what you were thinking. Okay, I could see, you know what? If that's what you were thinking, that probably is what Lally was thinking. Like Lally, okay. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, obviously that's plastic, you know? But maybe he's thinking that the jury is so stupid because that the fact that this trial is existing, but like that they're gonna mistake because there was one person who said something about the bubbles on the glass, but that it was glass, right? And like maybe he's hoping that the jury will just forget that it was made of glass and then look at that and think that's from a glass because of bubbles. When I know exactly what they're talking about with bubbles. The bubbles that are on a drinking glass, like a bar glass, are big, and also no one else saw the bubbles. This is a mess. So. Is that what you were thinking? That he was trying to insinuate that that's what she was drinking out of? Like that's so. It's not far-fetched that you would have picked up on the fact that Lally might be thinking that because Lally, that's plausible. It's so far-fetched. I just didn't even think of it because it's so not reality and it doesn't make any sense. But in that same vein, then it would make sense that that could be what Lally was thinking. Yeah, the cup. Yeah. Okay, that's terrible. But yeah, I bet that's what it was. I bet that's what he was hoping. Yeah, he only had one person come in and say bubbles, right? Fucking hell. And it was like, It was Higgins, wasn't it? It was Higgins. The last witness from the night at the bar was the only one that said there was bubbles. Everybody else described it all in different ways, but nobody said bubbles. But Higgins said bubbles. Just in the nick of time, right, Lally? Fucking hell. I can't. It's yeah. How? How is he not in jail? Seriously. Or at least on trial. For lolliness and all kinds of other things. Wow. I mean, you do take oaths to be an attorney. I would say the ethics violations are plentiful with him. Like worse than Miss Becky.
Yes.
For sure. All right, more exhibits.
Gilman, if I can have photograph 1958. And again, Ms. Blair, what's up on the screen is that the evidence bag or box that contains those items that you're testifying about, 7-9 and 7-19.
Yes.
Now, with regard to Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1962.
1962, a good year?
Now,
Oh, yeah, this is where we were.
It up on the screen and been marked as exhibit 297. Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a
Miss Gilman, will you zoom in, please, so we can see the exhibit? Y'all, I'm losing my mind.
Contained within this are 3 clear pieces of glass or plastic, if you know.
I'd have to look at my notes to see what I wrote them as.
One could easily.
Yes. Go ahead, look at your notes.
One could easily make a song regarding the 3 pieces of plastic. Because there's a lot of songs that have to do with things coming in 3s. Just saying.
And after referring to your notes, what type of material is that?
3 pieces of apparent plastic.
Plastic it is.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down.
And the winner is plastic.
Thank you very much. The item that's contained above those 3 pieces of apparent clear plastic, what is that?
That is item 7-19. That is a black straw.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1964. And what's up on the screen, Ms. Blair, now, and it's been marked as exhibit 299. Is that essentially the straw next to a ruler with its measurements? Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, with reference to the photographs that I asked you to look at before, have you had a chance to review those?
I have.
And do you recognize what's contained within those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The photos I took of item 7-11.
And what's contained in those photographs of item 7-11, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in your lab when you conducted your analysis in reference to this case?
It is.
You're on Commonwealth seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Right, the straw. Yeah, right. Could be anything. Let's take forever. Going on 2 times speed during the objection to the sound of Lally. Yeah, that was for anyone who missed it. The sound of silence, but Lally style. Objection to the sound of Lally. New hit. Mother of God.
And you're on course mission if I could publish.
Yes.
She's like, yes, get on with it.
Again, Ms. Blair, what's up on the screen is that the bag, evidence bag that contains item 7-11.
Yes.
And for the record, that's been marked as exhibit 310. Let's go if I could have 1982.
At least they didn't all put it in one bag. Like She's the only one that seems to have like done things properly so far. Okay. This now you guys can tell. So this is where the puzzle pieces is going to matter. So this is like the same type of bubble pattern, but this kind of flat like disputes what Lally was saying, right? Because I think it's clear that these all go together. Like that would be the idea, right? My guess is she's putting the pieces together as a puzzle and putting them in a bag with the pieces that go together. So clearly this is tail light, right? And that's the bubbly thing. If y'all go look at your tail lights, you'll see those little bubbles. I promise you.
The items, the pieces of plastic.
Where the light shines through.
The aforementioned evidence bag.
Because I guess just only those two larger ones fit together.
Yes.
And I guess she couldn't have fit those to these. I suppose if some pieces were missing, because ostensibly you should be able to put the whole thing back together, right? But if there's pieces missing, maybe it has to do with what happened when, you know, I don't know, any number of things. Like, remember we learned that the light, a lot of it, like, remember we heard that it shattered into pieces when they took it out. So there's that. I was saying last night at the end of that recap, if you guys watch that at the very end, there's a timestamp how you could liken it, the type of plastic, when it's all in one piece like that, if it's a big sheeting of it, you could liken it to like ice, a thin layer of ice on a lake. And if you have a big sheet, it would take like smashing it with something in order to get it shatter, if it shattered, right? But like, in other words, that's just not real. Clearly, right? These are pieces that you can put together as a puzzle. So if there's anything missing, they probably just didn't find it, or it was confiscated. And I don't know. Who knows what happened to it, right? We don't know.
Now, with regard to the photographs that I just
Yes,
mentioned for you before,
hold on.
have you had a chance to review those as well?
I have
And do you recognize what's contained within those photographs?
photos of item 7-14.
And what's contained in those photographs of item 7-14, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in your lab when you conducted your examination in this case?
It is.
Thank you. Your Honor,
Okay.
almost
Now they're going to do another. Okay. My gosh. You know what? Okay, you know what? I just looked at the time. I have to go because I've got lessons. So let me do this. I'm just curious. If we go live, I'm just curious if they're on cross yet, just to see where we're at in real time. Let's try it and see. Are they on a... The stream ended. What? Wait, what? Hold on. Ended? Are they splitting this into 3 parts? What is happening? Hold on. This is weird because... Hold on. Okay, I don't understand what's going on, but that's okay. I don't have to know everything. Because they're supposed to have a full day, right? What is going on? Did it just end there where we were? Okay, let's try this one more time and just see what the hell happened at the end, because I'm so confused. That's where we were. They were like going to admit shit. Look at this. Hold on. Oh, there's the end of the day. Okay. We were at them admitting evidence. We weren't that far behind, so. We'll direct.
And we'll get to that a little bit, I think, the next time. But with regard to...
There you go. So they're not even finished with direct. So they pick up tomorrow, there's no court. When they pick up with court again on Wednesday, they'll continue with direct examination. Mother of fucking God. And then who knows how much longer, and then cross. So she could be looking at how this is going. She could be on the stand for a majority of the day, maybe, or at least up until lunch, maybe. This trial. We're never going to get to, if they would even, we're not even going to get to the point of when they would maybe call to the proctor, because I feel like they're going to need the other person coming in after her who did the next part in terms of the stuff. Oh. And there's only a half day on Thursday and no court on Friday. So Wednesday, let's say she goes until lunch. I think that's a safe bet at this point, maybe even past lunch. Then they might start another person. But if it's another one of these people, like they had these people on the stands for a really long time today. So it's like, finish her, start somebody else. Then maybe they continue them on Thursday. Thursday's the half day. Y'all, it is too much Lally. I know. Objection to the sound of Lally. Y'all, wow. Okay, well, we're going to have to wait to find out what all this means. But what does it mean? Well, he doesn't know what it means. So, all right, y'all, it's been real. I will see y'all in a couple hours for the recap of week 5, minus Higgins, because we already did him. That's what she said. Ew, nasty, gross. Sorry. That was not, that just came out of my mouth. So let me put up my thingy. The Kieran Reed. There we go. Oh, there's no one on the witness stand anymore. Squangwin, Snow Squangwin. She'll be back tomorrow, so I guess I can just leave that thing ready. Or not tomorrow, Wednesday. Wow. All right, well, there you have it, guys. So, yeah, right. Yeah, this has been a day. This has been a wild day. But you know what? Thank you. Shout out to Black Witter. We've got inspiration for another song. So there's that. And there's, for all the problems we identified, we only caught some of the testimony because, we're going to go through it on the recap and be able to really pay more attention without keeping up with the live feed. I wonder how many more things were fucked that we didn't even catch. I don't know if I want to know though. I might not be able to make it if it's worse. Anyway, y'all are the best. Love the Squirrel crew. Just for fun, one more poop surprise, one for the road. And I will see y'all hopefully at 8 o'clock for that recap. And love you guys. See you guys soon. And I'm going to go ahead and roll. Where is it? The outro. Here it is.